Applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the applicant will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains within the allotted time. The staff of the Community Development Department will be keeping track of the time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Each speaker must fill out a speaker card before speaking and leave it with a staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak on your point of view. Each application has been properly filed with the Department of Community Development. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised, and the notices have been mailed to property owners affected by the zoning as required by the Milton zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition. The Mayor and City Council hearing will be approximately 3.5 weeks from this hearing on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. in these council chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city. Staff's recommendations, findings, and conclusions are here before us in written form, which has been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, dialogue with the person speaking, or outburst. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. All remarks will be addressed by the Planning Commission. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless requested to do so by the Commission. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred in accordance with the Milton zoning ordinance, you are required to update or obtain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay, and there are no exceptions. Okay, thank you for your patience. At this point, is there anyone who is here to speak on a matter that is not on the current agenda? It's a matter of public comment? Okay. No one, anything other than the current agenda? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to close public comment?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Public comment is closed. Okay. Next action is the approval of the action minutes from the April 26th, 2011 Planning Commission meeting. May I have a motion?
I move that we accept the Planning Commission action minutes of Tuesday, April 26, 2011.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Go. Need to sign them or wait for George to sign
Yeah, I
them?
have some other ones for him. We'll just wait.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 5 at the moment. Well, I was hoping Curtis would be here by the time we started the presentation, but I think we should begin.
Okay. The first item under new business is RZ 11-13, VC 11-02. at 14355 Providence Road and Haystack Lane by Seegers and Snidow, LLC, to rezone from C1 Community Business and AG1 Agricultural to O&I Office Institutional and AG1 Agricultural, to expand an existing building and 2 existing buildings for a total of 5,740 square feet with the following 4-part concurrent variance. Section 64-730C1, to reduce the 40-foot side yard setback to 10 feet along the east property line. Is Part 2, Section 64-1433E, to allow off-street parking within the side corner yard along the east property line. Request 3, Section 64-1141-3A, to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the west property line to 20 feet. Request 4, Section 64-1141-3A, to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the north property line to 0 feet. The subject site with the existing C1 Community Business District is 1.61 acres. And is located on Haystack Lane within the Hayfield subdivision and the eastern portion of the existing office building parcel. The applicant is requesting 1.15 acres of the parcel located within the subdivision to be rezoned to AG1 Agricultural to bring the subdivision into compliance with the AG1 district. The remainder of the parcel where the office building is located is currently zoned C1 Community Business and consists of 0.46 acre and 0.86 acre. The C1 Community Business of AG1 Agricultural is proposed to be rezoned to O&I for a total of 1.32 acres to bring the office building into zoning compliance. The site is located within the agricultural land use designation on the city's current future land use map. Staff notes that the location of the C1 district was discovered when the applicant submitted plans to expand the existing office by 1,400 square feet. It was then determined that based on the legal description included in the 1973 zoning file that the C1 Community Business District was not located where the building and its associated lot was located, but it bisected Haystack Lane and a small portion of the lot where the office was located. The applicant surveyor confirmed staff's location of the commercial district by applying the legal description to an as-built survey that is part of this application. It is staff's supposition that the original applicant of RZ 73-55 was unaware of the incorrect legal description at the time of the zoning approval. The applicant and his legal counsel met with staff to determine what action was needed to bring the Hayfield subdivision into compliance as well as the existing office. It was determined that by swapping the zoning designations, the applicant could permit and build his small addition to the existing office and bring the subdivision into compliance by eliminating the C1 district and downzoning to O&I and rezoning the appropriate portion to AG1. The proposed new O&I includes a portion of the lot to the west, which is also owned by the applicant, currently zoned to AG1. By including a small portion of the lot, the applicant can bring the western property line into compliance with a minimum side yard setback for the existing west accessory building. The total acreage for the new O&I office institutional is 1.32 acres, which is less than the original C1 parcel consisting of 1.61 acres. In regards to the site plan analysis, I won't go through every bit of it. I'll just review the requested variances. First one, Part 1, to reduce the 40-foot side yard setback adjacent to a street to 10 feet along the east property line, Section 64-730C1. The applicant's request is needed to permit legal use of the property, specifically the 1,026 square foot accessory building along the east property line nearest to Haystack Lane. This structure was constructed between 2000 and 2002 based on aerial photography. There is a retaining wall and landscaping along Haystack Lane that provides additional screening of the structure from the street. It is staff's opinion that by granting the reduction of the side yard setback from 40 feet to 10 feet would not offend the spirit or intent of the zoning ordinance. This situation has existed since the 1973 zoning, unbeknownst to the previous and current property owner, and this exceptional situation or condition was not caused by the applicant. In addition, the variance would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, as the applicant is the developer of the adjacent subdivision and owns the nearby properties. Lastly, the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of VC 11-02, Part 1. We'll go on down to landscape buffers. There's two requests, Parts 3 and 4, in regards to the 50-foot buffers. First, a 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the west property line to a 20-foot buffer, and then another request to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the north property line to 0 feet. The adjacent property to the west is developed with a single-family residence and is also owned by the applicant. The adjacent single-family residence to the north is the applicant's personal home. Located to the rear of the office, there is a fully landscaped area that is adjacent to both the north and west property line. There are trident maples, sugar maples, elm, and a large grouping of mature sweet gums and pines. This careful natural landscaping provides an aesthetically pleasing vista that is consistent with the intent of the Northwest Fulton overlay as follows. 1, to preserve and to ensure the harmony and compatibility of the character of the area, including its physical appearance, natural setting, and informal landscaping. 2, to preserve open space. 3, to be aware and respectful of the environment's natural resources and visual qualities. Requiring a large visual buffer along the west and south property lines impede the existing vistas on the subject property and adjacent properties that are consistent with the Northwest Fulton overlay's intent. This could offend the spirit or intent of the zoning ordinance. In addition, the situation has existed since the 1973 zoning, unbeknownst to the previous and current property owner, and as previously stated in the other requested variances. In conclusion, staff recommends approval conditional of VC 11-02, Parts 3 and 4. Under other site plan considerations, there's an additional variance, Part 2, to allow off-street parking within a side corner yard along the east property line. The applicant's site plan indicates a required handicap parking space and 2 additional standard spaces. This is the only accessible location for the handicap space to gain access to the office building. Adjacent to the east of the parking spaces is a retaining wall and landscaping along Haystack Lane that provides additional screening of the parking lot from the street. It is staff's opinion that by granting off-street parking within the side corner yard would not offend the spirit or intent of the zoning ordinance. And again, staff recommends approval conditional of VC 11-02, Part 1. I'll just also mention the arborist comments. The existing conditions of the site is in conjunction with the adjacent sites presently provide a very naturalistic wooded / park setting. The 2 adjacent properties have been cleared of underbrush and have been maintained in a very good state. The eastern tract has some native trees remaining as well as additional tree plantings. An evergreen screening buffer would detract rather than enhance the site for all 3 of the properties. If any buffer is required, consider a buffer planted to landscape strip standards. Based on the site plan and the tree survey provided, none of the trees will be impacted by the addition to the office. A pre-construction meeting will be required to ensure that the existing trees and their drip lines will be protected. The arborist also made comments alluded to the western tract, but that is in a separate petition, so just want to clarify that. As far as standards of review, the planning staff, with respect to each zoning application, investigate and make a recommendation with respect to factors 1 through 7 below, as well as any other factors it may find relevant. I won't go through verbatim every one, but I'll just highlight a couple of them. Whether or not the proposal will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and the development of adjacent and nearby property. The existing office accessory buildings and proposed addition of 1,400 square feet totaling 5,740 square feet is at an overall density of 4,348.48 square feet per acre. The primary use surrounding the property is single-family residential homes located on minimum 1-acre lots. There is a horse farm to the east, and further to the east is the Union Restaurant Zone C1 pursuant to RZ 77-10. To the south are scattered single-family homes on AG1, as well as minimum 1-acre lots further to the south in the Crabapple North subdivision zoned R2A. To the southwest is the Providence Baptist Church and Cemetery with the existing building, which was built in 1940 prior to the requirement of zoning regulations. West of the subject site is a single-family residence owned by the applicant and another C1 community business parcel with a metal and concrete building, which will be under consideration pursuant to RZ 11-14, VC 11-03. It is currently being utilized as storage for a local sign company. Further to the west is the Pleasant Hollow Farm subdivision zoned AG1 and developed with large single-family residences. Based on the fact that the location of the existing office was presumed to be zoned C1 for years and has been improved and used for an office, and by rezoning to O&I, it will further restrict the uses of the property. It is a suitable use for the property. And there will be if it is approved by the Planning Commission in the conditions of zoning, there's very strict restrictions to what the property would or could be used as. Whether there are other existing or changed conditions affecting the use and development of the property which gives supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval of the proposal. Although the proposed zoning for O&I is inconsistent with the plan map, it is staff's opinion that the office has been in existence based on previous information that the parcel was zoned C1 and that the use is not permitted with the majority of the parcels zoned AG1. In addition, the area to be rezoned is smaller than the existing C1 parcel, and by requesting the O&I district, the subject site will have less potential impact on adjacent and nearby properties. Therefore, staff supports the approval of this request to fix the existing zoning districts to bring both the office and the Hayfield subdivision into compliance with the city's ordinances. So in conclusion, although the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with the future land use plan's recommendation of agricultural, it is staff's opinion that by rezoning it to O&I with less area than the previous commercial zoning district, it will allow the existing use to conform with the city's various ordinances as they pertain to zoning and development. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of RZ 1113 to rezone from C1 and AG1 conditional to O&I office institutional and AG1 agricultural to expand the existing office for a total of 5,730 square feet. Staff will provide conditions to limit the development of the office not to exceed 3,524 square feet and 2 accessory structures not to exceed a total of 2,216 square feet. It is also staff's opinion that parts 1 through 4 of VC 11-02 be approved conditional to permit the existing natural vegetation and views to remain. So in conclusion, that's the staff's report, and if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Why don't we let the applicant
Sure.
make their presentation, and if there's any opposition, then we'll come back to staff unless anybody has any questions right now before we begin. Okay, if the applicant would like to come forward and make their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Members of the Planning Commission, I'm Don Rollator. My address, 11660 Alpharetta Highway, Suite 630, Roswell, Georgia. I'm the attorney for Barry Seegers, who's the applicant. Together with Barry and I tonight, we have David Burry, who's a principal in David Burry Engineers and Surveyors, Inc., who did our engineering and survey work on this site. This is an interesting story. I guess you would say, what are we doing here? 8 years ago, Mr. Seegers bought this property and started his offices of Seegers and Snydell on the property, has had a business license every year, paid his taxes. Life has been good. He went to visit with staff in the fall of this year and said, business is doing well, our medical specialty construction company is growing, I'd like to expand this existing structure. As a matter of note, the existing structure was built in the 1890s. It's been on Providence Road ever since. He and Robin studied and scratched their heads, and the more they scratched their heads, the more confused they got. And so my story to you is, here we are on May 24th, 2011, here before you, and paraphrasing the Jimmy Buffett song about Margaritaville, how it got here, we haven't a clue. In 1973, Mr. Westbrooks and the Fulton County Commission attempted to zone his business on his property. They missed. About 20% of the house sits on the commercially zoned property. Worse than that, where the commercial property really sits creates buffers on the existing residential lots in Hayfield subdivision that renders 3 of them unusable. So what a train wreck by accident. So we have taken a lot of time with staff, a lot of time with neighbors, and said, what can we do to fix this? The decision to fix it has been very simple. We'll downzone it from commercial to O&I. It's just Barry's office. We'll reduce the amount of square footage. We'll ask for the minimum variances necessary to make the use fit the property, and it'll be repaired. So that we don't mislead you, next month we'll be back with the little building down the street, which will remain commercial. We're doing fine with staff and with the neighbors there, but we're still tweaking it. We have a couple more things to fix. David Burry has a couple more items to draw, so we will see you again next month. But our effort here is strictly repair work. I think that we're in agreement with staff as to what needs to be done. We have had meetings with our neighbors and discussed it with them. The structure on the property and the landscaping is absolutely magnificent. If you haven't been there, I invite you to go and see it. I was amazed when I went for the neighborhood meeting the other night. I was ready to spend the night. And it was that much fun. So looking at it from our standpoint, we have tried to do exactly what staff wanted us to do and what Mr. Burry drew in order to put this in order. I would tell you that we want to discuss with you a couple of the conditions that staff has drawn up. And at the end of that, I want to take time to answer your questions, to allow Mr. Burry and Mr. Seegers to address anything you'd like for them to address, and then we'll reserve any remaining time for rebuttal. Robin, would you like for me to deliver those up there or hand them to you? We received these from staff, and then we had a discussion about them so we would understand each other. And the first several, I think, we were in agreement on. In paragraph 1A, it excludes all special use permits except if the fact that later a church or a cemetery use was needed, it allows the applicant to make that request in the future if that occurred. Otherwise, every kind of heinous use that could ever fall on this property has been restricted by Condition 1A. In Condition 1B, we just added some language to clarify what's on the survey so that it's not limited to Haystack Lane, but also the common area and the 30-foot detention access easement, which is here. It's a matter of clarification. On the second page, down in 3E, again, there's a clarification to provide a 20-foot buffer along the west property line as shown. It's indicated along this area. I think we're in agreement with staff on that. Condition 4 is a comment we think that's for the protection of our neighbors. We do not have agreement with this yet with Transportation Department of the city, but the city had provided that if they wanted to make us change, we would comply with several ordinances and basically put in a commercial driveway. This portion of Providence Road is very rural in appearance. It's a very nice area, and Mr. Seeger's driveway that serves his office is a residential driveway until you get up to the brick pavers and the millstone and the other pretty landscaping. Our opinion is that that should be left as is because our pledge to the neighbors is we would try not to do anything different. We want to keep the appearance and the use of this property as it is. Barry's sole intent was to add a few square feet onto his office building, and that's how we wound up here 6 months later. So any questions you have, I'm more than happy to answer. So are my 2 associates who are here with me, and other than that, I would reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here in opposition to the applicant this evening? No one? Okay, then may I have a motion to close the hearing? Then we'll ask questions.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, comment is now closed. Okay, members of commission, any questions for staff? We start with staff, and then we'll move to the applicant after that.
Just by way of clarification, on this thing that just handed to us, the changes are the applicant's changes?
That's
Or
correct.
Have staff agreed to those changes?
Everything, but we're just finalizing the last 4A. I mean, staff, I talked to the Public Works Director, he is okay if you keep condition 4A, but to replace the word as with if
The last sentence.
in the last sentence of the paragraph.
Okay.
But otherwise, staff is supportive of the proposed amendments.
All of them
Yes.
in 1A, B.
Correct, yes, we discussed the uses. I believe that we've pretty much excluded anything that would be heinous or.
Okay. And you're okay with 3E as well?
Correct, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
In 1A, all those designations, do those things track the definitions that we're going to see later on of what those, I see thrift institution here, that's not defined in the definitions that we're going to see. It's defined as a financial institution.
I think the definition is a secondhand or thrift store. I'll pull that to be sure.
I think he's talking about the bank or thrift
Oh,
institution.
it's a secondhand store rather than.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not a bank.
Sorry.
So, anyway, that doesn't conform to the definitions, either way, no matter what we call it.
I'm double checking those new definitions to see. I believe we put in,
As I recall, it was a different
it was,
description for what would be thrift store,
right, I think it was
i.e. Goodwill.
secondhand. I'm checking it now. Keep looking up.
Well, I don't think you have to go through that. I'm just,
That's okay.
my only comment is that any of these things that are included in 1A should track with the definitions that we're going to talk about a little later on. If they're not defined, if there's a term in 1A that's not defined, then we ought to strike it or add it to the definitions that we're going to talk to later on. That's my point.
Okay.
Anything else, Joe?
No.
Okay. Curtis? Anything for staff? Or, let's just do staff first. Chris?
No.
Okay.
Good.
Under flea markets.
Okay, anything for the applicant then? Joe?
What's the reason for the buffer reduction on the north side of the property?
That's adjacent to Mr. Seeger's existing home. It is well landscaped and attractive, and to install the average buffering materials on there would not serve the purpose like it's served right now. I think that Robin had the pictures up there earlier
Yeah,
of the
right there.
backyard.
It's the top one.
But if Mr. Seeger moves from that house, then somebody who buys in there is stuck with a zero buffer.
But they're also stuck with exactly what's there right now, which is a beautiful structure and a magnificent landscape. Those are parts of the site plan that we've presented for the city to approve. So I would see-
I understand that, but going forward, we're going to reduce the buffer because there's common ownership on both sides, but that is not going to necessarily be the case down the road.
No, I think that the true reason for reducing the buffer is not so much the common ownership, it's the quality of the material and the landscape that's there now. It is a stunning thing, and if you came in to meet the buffer standards and had to add plantings to it, it would disrupt the present appearance that's in that backyard. That's what we're driving at. It's not affected by common ownership, it's affected by what's there. And it's more than adequately landscaped.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of places that are adequate landscape, but still the buffer is there for a reason.
I wish I could take you out there.
No, I go by there every day. I know exactly what it looks like. I'm still just puzzling over that particular part of the application. I understand the other things, but I'm just puzzled by that.
Yeah, I share the same concern, and I'll tell you one of the reasons I share it is I completely get it, and I have driven on Haystack Lane. I think it's spectacular, and if in 1A you hadn't added a condition to say other than church or cemetery, which would imply that there is consideration at some day of the common ownership not remaining, then we are subjecting the future landowner to buffers that you're asking to be given up now. So I can't imagine a worst case scenario than changing anything up there right now because
I
it's
agree.
beautiful. I also, would give consideration to the fact that the existing structures, other than your new home, are period appropriate to some of the things that we're trying to hang on to in Milton as something of value to us in creating a sense of what we are. So if that were ever to change, for the sake of church or cemetery, I can only imagine that would be with contemplation of those going away, which I think would be a horrible thing. So if I could get a better understanding of why that condition is put in there, I maybe could better understand why I should give consideration to no buffer.
Let me try. When we discussed it with Robin this afternoon, and when we discussed it the other day, we said that as it's stated now, this property, zoned O&I, could not have any conditional use. And most office properties can have several or multiple conditional uses. So what we did is kind of go through on the telephone what allowed conditional uses were. And to be candid with you, we picked out the least two offensive ones we can. So we don't have any goals right now to put a church or a cemetery on there unless Barry wants to bury himself there when he goes. But those were the two that were not obnoxious, and that's why we chose them.
All right.
Also, the rear of the property that Mr. Kramer was concerned about will remain zoned agricultural, so that we don't have office all the way back to the other lot, which is an additional benefit, I think, to the future and to the neighbors. So that you couldn't put an office use on it. The rear of the property will remain agricultural.
But I still don't understand why the request for that zero buffer is on the north side. I don't get it.
Yeah. If anything, if I were to contemplate allowing that to happen, we may consider a condition that upon any change to the existing ownership or whatever, that buffer be available to the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
somewhere down
because
the road.
either side, you've got the road to the neighborhood itself, or is it going to be a neighborhood at some point?
We closed on a lot on Friday.
Oh, great.
We have another lot. We're hoping to have a contract.
Actually,
on by
I'm
the
sorry,
end of the
before
week.
can you state your name and
Yeah,
address
I'm
the
Derek
rest?
Seegers. I live at 13940 Haystack Lane. I
Thank
developed
you.
the Hayfield subdivision. I own one of the principals in Seegers and Snido and Seegers Group LLC.
Okay.
And it is the goal for it to be a neighborhood.
And it's lovely, just like it is, but I can't imagine that was the long-term plan.
Unfortunately, there's no secret what the market's done the last
Yeah,
couple of
that
years.
makes it somewhat
The good news is we're
challenging
seeing
from a
some
marketing
signs of
standpoint.
improvement. So
Resale
we're
camp. I wouldn't buy a property.
hoping things will take on off and gain a little momentum.
Yeah, good. Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Yeah.
Curtis?
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Seegers, as I understand the questions and answers on the buffer, is it just for appearance, or, because I guess I misread that originally. I thought it was a requirement for the new use, but it sounds like it's more cosmetic. Is that right, or am I misunderstanding?
To me, it's more cosmetic, and I use both properties, and quite honestly, the pavilion, the staff would call it a gazebo, is there for the use for my company employees. It also serves as a multiple function for the neighborhood. It was my intent that neighbors be able to use that for block parties, birthday parties. We created a park-like setting so it was aesthetic for both properties. So that's the intent, is that it remains usable and user-friendly for our office property and the neighborhood properties.
Can I continue?
Sure.
How many employees do you have?
We have 27 employees, but typically we only have 6 employees at the office. We're a commercial general contractor, have a unique niche business. I do mostly hospital work. We do $0 to $3 million renovation work. Our clients are Northside Hospital, St. Joseph's Hospital, Atlanta Medical Center, North Fulton, DeKalb Medical Center. We do a lot of the gritty, internal, high-risk renovation type projects. We've been in business for 11 years. But again, our office, the intent was to have a quiet, surreal, serene sort of setting there. My goal was, I'm a lifelong Alpharetta Milton resident. I liked some of the older homes that were being used for businesses in Alpharetta. And when we bought this property, it was our intent to do something similar to those, and we have.
How many, with the new capacity, how many new employees would be? Is that what's driving the expansion?
We currently have only 6 employees. Our goal is not to grow as a company. A couple of years ago, we added a couple of employees and we put them into our conference room. We miss our conference space, so our intent is to create some more private office setting for those employees other than have them in cubicles in a conference room.
Thank you.
Just to close the loop on the buffer part, have you ever been over there? It actually,
I've driven by it, but I can't picture it.
when I first drove on Haystack Lane, I had the impression that was like it was intended to be a clubhouse for the neighborhood. And obviously, that's not the case if it's going to be your business, but
It was actually there way before the neighborhood occurred.
Right.
So,
I remember when it was cut in. Yeah. So. Okay. Fred, did you have a question?
Yeah, this addition, as it's pictured on the front of the existing office that we have, can you help us out as to where that expansion will be? I'm not,
I think the easel's a little fragile here. Actually, what we're doing as part of the property is trying to improve around here. This would be the west side of the property. Under the current overlay, this building is actually right on the property line. We're trying to rework the property lines to create reasonable buffers and, attempt to make the zoning and the property make sense. This is the area that we're actually adding onto on this end of the building and then in the back here. I think our addition's not very large. We're just trying to create some more private office space, and we're going up. No, architecture, the intent is for the character of the building not to change.
okay.
Yeah, and did I read that you guys have been in front of the design review board on your intended?
We have.
And did they? I don't recall reading comments back. They must have been in support of the.
There were no issues with
Okay, it's in keeping with the current facade,
it. Right.
period appropriate, that kind of stuff. Will it be visible from the street? Is the extension, it would be to the west side? there is going to be some frontage to the street, isn't there?
Not any more visibility than currently exists. We have trees that exist
Yeah.
here and buffer that view.
Okay. But it is physically going to have an east-west frontage. It's just buffered by the trees that are there.
Actually, the frontage,
There's a little corner
yeah,
on that, corner of that building, the left,
Yeah.
southwest corner. has a
Yeah,
real
but you
small-
can't see that from the road,
Right.
if I remember
From
correctly.
Providence.
and you still won't be able to because there's no plan to change the existing trees that are there.
Okay.
There's some fir trees there that fill in that
Yeah.
corner.
In your comment, you're going to go up, there'll be a second story?
There's currently an attic, but there will be a second story.
Okay.
Not for the whole structure, just for the piece that we're adding on.
Okay, any other questions? for-
This is, again, a repeat of another issue, but disclosure report Form C, wherein the applicant is supposed to designate whether they've contributed $250 or more to a city council person on a zoning matter. It says if you have, to complete section 1, 2, 3, and 4, you've completed 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I may have done that in error. I've not made any comment.
So it's a no.
No.
Paul, just one, on that same thing. I know this is for another time, but we just need to have a discussion and another date about these, completion of these forms. Signatures where signatures are missing and forms not being filled out, and that disclosure form, and it just gets passed through, and it's not right.
Staff's conditions on gravel and the requirement for, obviously, the ADA requirements for the paving, you have to comply with, and you're completely willing to comply with the gravel and no change to that for a driveway and additional parking.
Without question.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, the arborist's assessment of the property was there are no current significant specimen trees affected or anything else by this change. If anything, they actually recommended that additional buffering in one would be a distraction from the current. Okay.
One side note, the arborist or someone said you had an elm. Is it living?
We have a number of trees that are cloned trees.
Okay.
The elms we have are cloned trees.
All right.
And they're,
Being from the north and knowing that all elms have been destroyed, I just had a question mark as to maybe you had a secret that.
I actually like them. I like the elms. They're easy to keep up and the leaves are very small.
Okay.
Easy to deal with.
Okay. Any other questions? For staff or applicant? Okay, anyone care to make a motion?
Yep. I move that we accept RZ 11-13/VC 11-02 at 14355 Providence Road and Haystack Lane, with the addition of the on number 4, that if that property was to be sold, that it would be necessary to include the 50-foot buffer at the time of the sale.
Okay. Can I
Yes,
ask
you-
you to consider a couple other things in your motion?
Yes, you can.
Are you willing to consider the other changes made to the recommended conditions as proposed by the applicant?
Yes.
And are you also willing to include in your motion all of the conditions placed on this by staff?
On this by staff, correct.
Okay.
I'll second that, but I've got a question.
Okay.
And,
Well, so if there's a second, okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Now, is there any discussion?
I don't know if we can require deed restriction or future.
Well, we can require it, it's just going to be very, very hard for us to enforce. It'll be one of those things that if it happens, well, we'd have to find out about it typically after the fact.
Do you think in 100 years or so, someone may come back and say, we were supposed to have a,
It'll probably be you standing out there bringing the staff's attention.
it's probably preferable, hopefully me. I think maybe preferable to try to restrict that than to deny.
Say that to me again.
Preferable to put that restriction, hard as it may be to enforce, than to deny. That was my thinking out loud. Just an observation.
Okay. All right, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I would, Mr. Chairman, like to say that I'd like to compliment both staff and the applicant for the amount of work that was necessary to really continue to improve the things in the city of Milton. So I compliment both of you.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Can we have an approval for the variances? I don't think you mentioned.
Didn't, Paul said that
Did you
I
include
asked
the
that-
that
variances?
staff's for recommendations.
Yeah, that
Okay.
it was
Okay.
included in Fred's recommendation.
Okay, I just
The-
want to make sure we're addressing the variances too.
Right.
Yes.
That's fine.
That were approved.
Okay. Robin, if you would sound the next item?
Okay, next item, RZ 11-14, VC 11-03, 1437-5 Providence Road by Seegers and Snydow LLC to rezone from C1 and AG1 to C1 and O&I for an existing building and proposed building for a total of 4,585 square feet with a four-part concurrent variance. I won't go through the whole thing. Basically, as the applicant had stated earlier, as we were working through the issues, like, it is a very difficult situation and complicated. It was found that staff recommended them to go back to the drawing board to come up with basically not increasing the amount of non-agricultural, and so they're in the midst of creating a new plan to try to just fix the problem and not expand the commercial piece. So staff is asking the Planning Commission to defer this item to the June 28th Planning Commission meeting to allow them to resubmit some drawings and for us to re-advertise.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone that is here this evening to speak beyond that? Let me just make sure we're clear. What are you here to speak on, if you're raising your hand?
I can defer until the June 28th meeting concerning RZ 11-14.
Okay,
My name is Ed Schubert, at 915 Pleasant Hollow Trail.
okay,
Adjacent to the property, under consideration.
okay. And you are in support of the deferral?
I'm in support of the deferral, yes.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Is there a chance that you won't be able to attend the June 28th meeting to comment?
And
I'm in town, I believe. I definitely want to be here. And we're trying to work this out with Barry Seeger. But yes.
I mean, if you would like to speak into the record this evening, so that, just in case you haven't lost any opportunity, you certainly have that right to do so this evening.
Let's see. I'm ready for this.
And you can make,
Yeah, I guess I can speak.
okay, You come forward to the mic and then just state your name and address for the record.
Filled out a speaker card.
And you would have to, do you have a completed speaker card?
Thank you. Again, my name's Ed Schubert. Reside at 915 Pleasant Hollow Trail, which is a property adjacent to this property under consideration. I can defer my full comment at our next meeting, since Mr. Seeger and his attorney are presenting a different proposal. He was kind enough to meet with the neighbors to discuss his intentions, and I think that's a great start. We do have some concerns with regard to lighting, with regard to number of trees they plan to remove, and the noise, and what type of businesses that may go there now, and what type of businesses may go there in the future when it's no longer a Seeger property. It's as you know, that area, it's a beautiful country setting, and we certainly want to try to keep that setting. But again, I'll compliment the counselor and Mr. Seeger for working with us, and hopefully we can reach a happy ending here.
Very good.
Okay, but I'll defer my comments. I think I'm in town that day. I'll defer. Thank you for asking, but I will defer my full comments for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming
Thank
forward.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so may I have a motion from the commission?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of deferring RZ 11-14, BC 11-03 to the June 28th PC meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Robin, if you would sound the next item.
Yeah, the next item is RZ 11-11, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend definitions in section 64-1. Ms. Tully will take over.
As you all may remember from the last meeting, one of the discussion points was the definitions that were included in the C1 and C2 zoning districts. So you all had asked me to go back and to include all definitions that were in both of those zoning districts, to be sure that those are addressed in the zoning ordinance definition section. So I have done that. I have used primarily the Webster's 11th edition, as we said that was the edition we were going to stick with. That's reiterated in the beginning portion of the definition section, 64-1A, where we deleted any later editions. So we're going to stick with this edition. I have attempted to put together definitions for each of the uses that are permitted by right in C1 and C2, where they have not been specifically listed. So there have been several added, and I didn't go through and count them all, but there are several. Where Webster's didn't address it, I attempted to go with common dictionary definitions, looked in several places, particularly looking at other folks' zoning ordinances and how they define them so that it's in more of a land use vernacular. But most of which I could find, or find parts enough thereof in the Webster's dictionary that I could make use of them. However, I will say that there is no thrift institution definition. I'm not really sure what a thrift institution is. Robin seems to remember the thrift institution as maybe being some sort of a credit union or some type of a smaller bank, which maybe it wouldn't be a franchise type bank, but.
That's the way I,
Really?
when I saw it, I said, it's a savings bank.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that myself. I've never heard of that term. But we can write that one in as well,
I
so.
may have to correct myself on that statement because I think that was brought up in Alpharetta where they kept Goodwill from going on the corner of Cogburn and Highway 9. And they used that language as thrift store.
Really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
this
So,
Institution.
Institution. Institution, yeah. But they, in theirs, it said thrift store, so that's why.
I would say,
But I think we
however,
needed something in there on that.
well, I would say that financial institution covers that
Covers that.
in the definition as it's been added here. I mean, our financial institution definition includes all establishments for the custody, loan, exchange, or issue of money for the extension of credit and for facilitating the transmission of funds. So, I mean, that would include anything that was a savings, a loan, credit union, et cetera. So we probably don't need it listed separately in O&I, but it is. So maybe when we get to that point, we can take that one out as being unnecessary.
Okay.
All right.
Are there questions in these definitions? I know that there are a lot of them, and I don't think that you really want me to go through each and every one.
No, I think the way I'd like to handle this is, when I went through, if I remember correctly, I only had a couple of questions
Okay.
with the, geez, I think it was in this.
Mr. Vice Chairman, can we maybe just go page by page?
That's what I was going to
If anybody
suggest.
has-
I was just looking to see where mine were and if it was going to, if that would be a, yeah, I think that's probably the most efficient way. Joe? So if everybody's in agreement, we'll just flip page by page and
All right.
see if we've got questions. Okay, so page 1 of 39. Any questions or comments? Page 2 of 39.
I've got a general question. The top of the page.
Page 2?
I'm sorry, page 2, the top of the page, numbers 2 through 4. Is that really necessary? You know, the thought that my kids might be doing some kind of a school project.
Really?
Sorry. Yeah. We have to state. Unfortunately.
Well, I'm all for stating, but I mean, I'm okay with it, but that's surprising. I mean,
It is.
At what point in time did this become either appropriate or necessary? And why? I mean, is it just how bad things have gotten that you've got to be so explicit?
Because, yes, sir, when we get into litigation, you have to have it defined fairly explicitly, and it is.
That is a sad state of affairs.
It is.
The same
I
with
agree.
criminal code.
Yeah, it's just like, the Supreme Court ruled, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty much defines what it is.
Yeah,
I
that's
know
the
when I
point.
see it or read it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Sorry, yeah.
And that's typical, most zoning ordinances, if you go to other jurisdictions, there'll be.
I've never seen. I've read a fair amount of.
I've had to write a few
I've
of
got my
those, and they're
attention.
not comfortable to write either.
No,
I'll be honest with you.
I imagine not. And, I mean, just reviewing it with someone's embarrassing.
Yeah, you get blocked on the internet quite a bit trying to do the research. It's pretty ugly.
I hadn't thought about that.
The FBI will.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay. Page 3, 39, any questions? Page 4. Page 5. Page 6.
please note on page 6, the commercial vehicle definition, which is one that was brought forward with the landscaping.
It's actually on page 7 for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead, 7. Well, on page 7.
We're not there
You're
yet.
ready to go
Right,
there?
We're not there yet.
All right,
Page
Paul.
6?
No problem.
Page
Now,
7?
All right, okay, commercial vehicles. That was the definition that Robin brought forward with the landscaping business definition and what do you call it? Thank you, use permit changes, so.
The only one I found interesting, or let me say it differently, the only one I found exceptional, where it was inconsistent with where I might have called a commercial vehicle, is the description by gross weight, that it has to be 11,000 pounds. And there are a lot of vehicles out there that are considered, that I would consider commercial vehicles used in the conducting of a commercial business on a site that weigh a whole lot less than
A
11,000.
full-size pickup truck is about 5,500,
That's exactly what I was
6,000
thinking.
pounds.
Even a dually probably doesn't weigh more than about 8,000 pounds.
No, it doesn't.
So,
Doesn't.
but the 11,000, I think, if you look at most motor vehicle classifications, including the federal government, that's the cutoff.
probably requiring a different license at that point, don't you think?
Yeah.
So were we intending for it to be that far, or?
Well, I think number 2 and number 9 would cover the majority of what's left. For instance, those things that would be less than 11,000 pounds. And as the definition leaves it up to, okay, you can, if you meet at least 2 of these, then you are considered a commercial vehicle. That kind of
Okay.
covers the rest. So they're general enough.
To be honest with you, I had missed the 2 or more part when I had read
Oh,
it
okay.
earlier. But,
This would be a Prius. And
It could
2
be.
and 9.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess my concern is alleviated by that. I guess it would be no argument if it was a dump truck,
Right.
sizable dump truck. That would for sure. But if we're talking about, 6 white Ford F-150s, they would be considered under the additional list. Okay, I'm good with 7.
Lynn,
Yes, sir.
what was the purpose of adding that second part to this? The following types of vehicles shall all be considered commercial vehicles. Why did we do that?
Purely for clarity, simply to give a listing of, we know that these are commercial vehicles and would be considered commercial vehicles, whether or not they meet 2 or more. Most, if not all of them, in fact, I think all of them do meet that 2 or more designation. However, just in case there was some concern or someone, had a question, we could go back to at least that list and say, no, it's expressly said that those are considered commercial vehicles, even though you make an argument that 2 of these don't apply.
Well, I have a little bit of problem with that.
Okay.
Just, first of all, because we're very specific about what is and what isn't in that list. And that, I assume that was to take into consideration all types, just cover all the bases. But then by going back and saying, and these, now you're adding another definition to the definition. And some of this is not clear to me. What's a semi-trailer or a tractor trailer? What's the difference? I don't even know what a semi-trailer is.
Semi-trailer.
And then there's a trenching vehicle. So if I rent a ditch witch from Aaron's Rents, it's a commercial vehicle because it trenches. And other similar type of construction, I mean, that's just so vague as to be impossible to define. I don't know why we go to the step of trying to define what we've already defined.
Well, that's a good
We
point.
can take it out. There were,
Well, unless we were to further differentiate, because some of those things that are in this list, I would consider commercial equipment, but not commercial vehicle.
Right.
That's a good point. The semi-trailers are not vehicles.
Well, and you could have a dump truck that's on a regular Ford 150.
Yeah. And you don't ride a mortar or concrete mixer.
But you do ride, or, you know,
You
some of your...
could ride one.
Well, it would be, you'd be saying, okay, rough ride on the way home.
I mean, it wouldn't be any fun, but
Yeah, I agree with,
There was
Joe,
some
that we-
concern from council, I'll say, about the list and what all things were included in the list and what weren't. So, I mean, either way, I think it'd be just as valid. So if we wanted to take it out or if we wanted to leave it in with more specificity, that's fine.
I don't think it adds anything.
All right, then.
I think it detracts from your
pinpoints,
definition.
right.
And
Okay.
if there's any doubt about the first part not covering everything, then we ought to go back and look at that.
Okay. I think it covers everything. I think Robin did a good job. She had a hard time finding something that would cover it all.
well, do we have a definition for commercial equipment?
No.
No. So, yeah, I might suggest that we consider a commercial equipment definition,
We could.
and then you could move some of that stuff to commercial equipment.
I'm trying to think in what case we would use that, because all the equipment, no matter
Well,
where we are in the city
I
of
think
Milton,
about
have
some
to
of
be
the-
enclosed.
Well, I'm thinking about some of the zoning cases that have come before us, and and some have been screened and some have been unscreened. And we have typically kind of generalized when talking about the equipment that is on site. We typically have talked about the vehicles that have gotten people and things to and from the site, and we have in some instances talked about the equipment. We kind of did a broad brushstroke, and we're talking about what things need to be screened, and we always talked about the commercial vehicles. So that being said, you know, I remember we've had conversations about bulldozers, and we've had conversations about bobcats and those kinds of things, but we've never necessarily put those types of equipment into a grouping that can be identified as things that we might also find appropriate to a commercial site, but offensive to a non-commercial site. That's,
I was going to comment, since the last meeting, the council approved the use permit. And one of the requirements in the use permit is a maximum, that was approved, a maximum of 2 commercial vehicles used for the landscape business shall be screened such that they cannot be viewed from adjacent properties or the public right-of-way, and shall be parked on specifically identified portions of the property. Additional commercial vehicles and equipment shall be parked and/or stored inside a building. So there is a reference, although.
In that particular
In that
use
particular
permit,
one, yes. This
So
is-
it's-
Yeah.
so does that make my point even more
Well, it's not
salient?
exact, it's been approved, and it was,
But
it says additional commercial vehicles and equipment, it doesn't say commercial vehicles and commercial equipment. I don't know if that makes a
I
difference or
think it
not.
would be, I think that you could extend that interpretation easily.
so you're implying then you don't need a separate definition because it's included there as
Well,
a
not for
general
that
reference?
use permit. Now, I just don't know if in any other area of the zoning ordinance we have allowed it. I don't,
Well, typically the discussion has been about prohibitions, where we're bumping into commercial businesses with an AG1 component, or either within an AG1 area with a special use permit, or where it was, you know, commercial use abutting an AG1 parcel. So,
and in most of
And-
our
and-
overlays, we have screening requirements for all of their equipment, for lack of a better term. But, so I don't know that it would, I mean, I don't know that it's going to harm anything. I'm just not sure that we'll ever need to use that definition,
okay.
I guess.
And two, I think there's a lot, I mean, farming, they use a lot of the similar equipment. Are we going to say they can't have equipment sitting out near their barn?
No, but in an
or-
AG1, it, you know, which would include farming,
Right.
their equipment is appropriate to the allowed uses in an AG1 application. Where I want to differentiate is where you've got a commercial use next to an AG1, where we might want the additional protection of a commercial equipment definition.
Okay. I can look into that and bring that one
I think it's,
back
I
as
think
another
it's, I
something
think it warrants
to add later.
just some additional discussion, or at least consideration of a definition. We can still
Okay.
choose not to include the definition once we have put one forward for assessment.
Okay.
Anybody disagree with that? Okay, so if you don't mind, Lynn, that would be great.
Sure.
So do you all want to continue on? Do you want to delete anything to that definition or change anything as we go on?
Well, until such time that we have a definition for commercial equipment, I think I'd like to leave it like it is, where it's inclusive of,
Okay.
under commercial vehicle, and when we have a better definition for that, then strike this stuff.
Okay.
I think it would be dangerous to strike it now without the benefit of a commercial equipment definition.
Okay. I
Right.
think Joe had the most issue with leaving it in. How do you feel about
Well,
that, Joe?
Yeah, it doesn't belong here.
And my question is, again, you know, sure enough, somebody's going to say, well, I've got a such and such and such, so, and it qualifies above because we left it out, or they brought something new in that we don't consider right now. So I think it's too, if we leave the 9, then we aren't held, you know, well, is that a trenching machine or is it a pipe laying machine? You know, we're getting down to specifics here, and I think that list could go on and on and on.
Well, there is a way to, Fred, to say, and in all other such pieces of equipment, consistent with, it's, you know, where you get a broad
Or sim-
brushstroke to it.
Or
you know.
others, which it says, or other similar type of construction equipment, and that goes back to your point
Yeah.
about,
So, Joe, I don't disagree that it's not appropriate here, which is why I'm asking for a separate definition. But do you understand my hesitation to take it out for the moment? If we're, and we're not talking about an approved document at the moment. It's still a work in progress. So, would you mind if we left it in until we get
No, that's, as long as we make that's part of our
our
motion or whatever we're going to do with it, to note that section should be revamped to,
Include commercial equipment.
Well, I think when we get to the end of this, our motion is going to be that we ask for some additional, if it's even a motion, work to be done on this with a chance to consider any other changes that we're making in here to be inclusive of the things that we're talking about. And then at that point, be able to make a
Vote on
motion
it.
to go forward with it after another round of this.
so, Paul, yours is to add commercial, what?
Mine is to consider an additional definition of commercial equipment.
Right,
which is-
along with
which is separate and apart from commercial vehicle.
Okay, gotcha.
To include things that are in
Within
that last paragraph.
Right, gotcha.
Or anything else that might be appropriate to be considered under commercial equipment. And you're never going to capture it all, nor should we try to capture it all. But there certainly are things that would be consistent with that would be appropriate, that would be associated with the things listed in the list above. Okay. Curtis, you had a question?
Yeah. Just to plant a seed, I read this paragraph differently, and I think I assumed that more thought had gone into it maybe than it had. In another completely unrelated situation, we dealt with vehicle weights and studied what was below and what was above and what the implications were and the track and the width and all this garbage. So I was reasonably smart on that. When I saw the 11,000, that meant something to me, and when I saw the list in the second paragraph, that also did. And I thought that it was a way to include some that didn't meet the threshold, like, a step van, a small pickup truck, or a dump truck rather, may not be 11,000 square feet and wouldn't carry 8 passengers, or might not meet 2 of these criteria, but that by prima facie whatever met the someone's definition of a commercial vehicle. And then secondly, to define what equipment was, non-vehicle equipment.
you're
And
gonna
so
work-
it didn't seem either redundant or increasing vagueness to me. I didn't have an issue with it for those reasons.
If you're going to use words like prima facie, we're going to have to refer you back to page 2 and ask that you give careful
Well, I was
consideration.
gonna
to-
say something about having taken 3 years of high school French, but I'm being recorded and that's Latin. So my kids will see it one day. His eyes are awfully close together. I guess
That's right.
he wasn't very bright after all.
Okay, so with, Curtis, do you have any response to Curtis's comment?
It was just really a comment, to consider.
Yeah.
And if that was the intent, something that overlaid any of the two in the previous section, then maybe there's another way to accomplish that if it causes a problem.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on page 7 before moving along? No? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? 11?
Yes. If I may, just editorializing, escort and dating service mean any business that, instead of who, arranges a meeting between an escort, scratch under its employment, because they may not necessarily be, and they usually aren't. At least that's what I heard.
And if we're going to get into nuance, I'm glad you brought this up, Joe, because I've been thinking a lot about it. No, I'm kidding. Employment takes on a certain legal ramification too, and you may have already thought about that. Don't want to beat it to death, but there's a category of employees or of workers that would call themselves contractors or subcontractors that would not consider themselves to be employees, and if there's any enforceability issue here, that might, it's semantics maybe, but,
That was my point.
oh, okay.
All right.
It's funny that the next word behind that is
It's family.
family.
Family, yeah.
It's Milton.
Yeah. Why is the word family there?
It
It's a widow.
defines family on the next page. It just rolls over.
Okay.
And
All
yes,
right.
we have to have a definition for family.
So that was it for 11. Anything on page 12?
Yeah.
No?
Well, piggeries,
What is it?
is that a defined term that in my
What did you ask?
72 years in
Piggery?
the state of Indiana?
Piggeries.
Piggeries.
It's C.
Is that the growth of
Oh, from
one,
farming.
one subpoint or sub letter C.
Yes.
C?
Yeah, well,
That came from the original.
I'm gonna have to look that up in this
What is
book
the
over here.
Webster's,
Well, like I
the
said, I've
11th
been around,
edition?
been around a long
I
time.
think I know
but
what that means. But,
Yeah.
mm,
It's
does anyone
think
call
that
it that?
came-
including a county councilman for 4 years, and I don't think piggeries came up.
Is it really defined?
I'm looking.
Oh, all right.
Yes, it is. Oh my goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
A place where swine are kept
There you go.
is a piggery.
We just used to call that a hog
Hog farm. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
There you
Curtis.
go.
This is
Okay.
a lot more sophisticated.
Didn't win that
Wait
one.
till they get to the
You
millinery or whatever.
Right, Milner, right.
All right.
All right.
Sorry.
Anything else on 12 besides piggeries?
We haven't had this much
Yeah,
fun with
we resolved
text
piggeries.
amendments in a long time.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Yes.
I knew there would be one on 17.
Just editorial issue. Fortune-telling establishment means all persons, firms, or corporations engaging in the business, trade, or profession. And this is a question, under funeral home, means an establishment with facilities for the preparation of the dead for burial. Does that include animals?
It can.
Okay, it was intentionally, okay.
Okay, anything else on 17?
What was on, what was the
It's
change?
where it's to engage. Joe was suggesting the word engaging.
Oh, okay.
These are definitions. And just that word cremation only from the standpoint of what's occurred in some of these other towns, separating it from funeral home.
I'm sorry, Fred.
Well, several, I think Snellville and something else, they don't want cremation at the funeral home. As I say, this may be a,
Say that again, what's your concern?
well, using the word cremation, that would indicate that the funeral home, would qualify to cremate, and we might not want that at the funeral home.
Well,
Well-
it's the preparation of.
It's, the definition is simply suggesting that a funeral home could be inclusive of. So I don't, the fact that it's just a definition here, I don't think.
You
it's-
don't think it-
I don't take exception to it being
Included?
inclusive because it's a longer list of things that we are considering under that. Unless we're intending to separate on purpose funeral home and, what's the right word?
Crematorium. And in fact, we do have a definition for crematorium
I was
in
just
here,
looking to
too.
see if we had a crematorium.
So,
did?
we do.
Okay, well, I gotta handle it.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to that point, though, with facilities for preparation of the dead for burial or cremation. So if it's a cryogenic facility, then it's not a funeral home. Because they're not being buried or cremated, they're being
I'm
frozen.
not sure how I would actually.
Well, I'm just saying
I
you-
mean, that's a good question. I don't
If you
know.
take out for burial or cremation, then it's preparation of the dead for whatever they're going to do. As opposed to limiting it to burial or cremation.
It's true.
So it'd be
That one came
preparation
from
of the dead,
Webster's.
comma,
Right.
for viewing of the body and for
and
funerals. I'll go along with that.
Okay. Remove the burial and cremation. And just leave.
Well, however,
Yeah, then you have to meet all three.
if we're allowing a funeral home, in today's zoning, that would probably go into,
I was just looking that up. It's C1 and O and I.
okay,
That's,
so if it's O and I, for example, I'm not familiar with what a cryogenic business would look like.
No, I don't either.
But
But I know Ted Williams
It's a
is
bunch of
in
little
one.
freezers,
You know what we see?
Yeah.
just overhead size.
Well, but I'm thinking it's,
Believe it or
it's a
not,
different
that's
scenario
what it is.
than a funeral home,
Ah.
where if you,
Well, they
My naive
they
interpretation
actually
is-
sever the head. I mean, it's a
Oh,
different,
really?
it's a different process.
yeah.
are we
Well, that's
doing
kind of where I'm going, is it, I find that to be a more, my naive interpretation is or my naive understanding of it is it's a more industrial process, where there could be trucks of the appropriate gases and liquids and whatever, which would be very different than what I think go on today. And again, I'm naive to these things, but I'm just making a broad brushstroke assumption. I don't find the funeral home to be as industrial as what I imagine a cryogenic lab to be. So we need to ensure that if we're including or excluding some of those things, that we're not painting ourselves into a corner and allowing something that would be inappropriate to a zoning classification today.
As I understand it, yes, you're right. They do have more of an industrial type impact, typically because of the deliveries, the chemicals involved, et cetera, Freon and whatnot. I'm assuming it's Freon, whatever it is that they use to keep everything cold.
Nitrogen, probably.
Nitrogen. But, yeah, those are typically more associated to an industrial area than they would be to an office area. Could they be downscaled to be fairly unobtrusive?
Well,
Maybe. I just don't know enough about it.
Just the use of the nitrogen gas alone is going to put them elsewhere.
Okay, so that being said, do we want to change the current definition of funeral home to be more or less definitive here? And Lynn, I'm not seeing crematorium.
Crematorium is, yes, it's in there.
It's just kind of at the
It's
bottom.
on page 9 at the top.
Oh, sure enough, okay. But, okay. And we don't have, do we have a definition of cryogenic?
No.
No, my only point was that we're adding things to the definition that are not required. We're narrowing the scope of the definition rather than making it a broader brush definition. We're saying for burial or cremation, as that's one of the things that will push you into that classification. And my thought was, there could be other things you do with a body. It seems more important that the thing we're dealing with is the preparation of dead bodies for whatever they're going to do and for the viewing and for funerals. The fact that they are buried or cremated or sealed in a glass box for display, it's unimportant to the definition of the funeral home. That's my thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me go back to my point again, having said that. So if you just say the preparation of the dead for the viewing of the body or for funerals, that in a funeral home could also then include a cryogenic process. If we don't limit it to
True.
preparation of the, well, it's not even definitive enough this way.
Is it?
If you don't say burial or cremation, if you strike that, then you could include a cryogenic process.
Well, they would be excluded for other reasons, but it's really the preparation of the dead. The funeral homes are limited to what? C2?
C1 and O&I.
And O&I. It's the O&I part. You know, look at the thing we heard tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a funeral home there.
Well, they excluded.
Yeah.
Well, you can have it
We
anyway,
did
whether
exclude.
this definition is there or not. I mean, have it anyway. It's a permitted use, so. I'm not hung up on it.
All right. So leave it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave it, the original one? or-
Yes.
The original.
Okay. Anything else on 17? 18?
I have a comment. The gymnasium means a room or building used for various outdoor sort physical fitness and/or take out and/or usually equipped with gymnastic apparatus, including. I don't know what that means, so I would take out the words gymnastic apparatus, including. So it would now read. Means a room or building used for indoor sports and physical fitness, usually equipped with spectator accommodations, locker rooms, shower rooms, classrooms, and swimming pools, and/or swimming pools.
It's a good change.
So you're striking, starting with and.
Striking and/or in that
Yeah.
first sentence, first line.
Yeah?
Striking gymnastic apparatus, including, and then adding on the third line, rooms, classrooms, and/or swimming pools.
So the assumption is it would be equipped for whatever sports, using whatever apparatus they need,
Yeah.
as long as they were indoor sports. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Page 19.
I have a comment. Health club spa means a commercial establishment whose members pay a fee. So strike out the word having and who to use its health and fitness facilities, equipment. And then I would strike, next sentence, strike the words starting with health and ending in not, and substitute the words, this definition does not include residential or subdivision amenity areas.
What did you do with the middle part? I got the first part and the end.
Okay, the second sentence now reads,
Okay.
this definition does not include. So I struck the word, health clubs may include a gymnasium, however shall not.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on 19? 20? 21? 22?
Just please note there that we did include the landscape business definition that was approved by the council recently.
I was very excited when I read that.
Under the laundromat definition, I'd like to include the word commercial. So it would read, laundromat means any commercial laundry.
Okay.
And then under laundry and dry cleaning shop, it's a question. It says cleansing of fabrics with non-aqueous organic solvents. So are we specifically excluding laundries?
It says it may include laundering off-site.
What about if it's laundering on-site?
That the intent there is that it shouldn't have laundering on-site. It would be sent off, laundered. from
No,
that.
but we're saying a laundry, a commercial laundry, is a place where they use non-aqueous organic solvents and may include laundering off-site. So if I go to a laundry that does, cleans and presses my shirts, they're going to use water, so they're not included in any of this.
Right, but the definition is for laundry and dry cleaning shop. I think the intent was that the non-aqueous organic solvents was related to the dry cleaning portion of the shop, and that any
But-
laundry would be done off-site.
No, but I've got a shop, and I got washing machines and dryers in the back and an ironing, and I use water. So this doesn't cover me.
Right.
So we're saying we can't have any laundry with water?
No, we're saying you send off your laundry to wherever
Well, what
your
would you fall
main
under the one above
distribution
it?
place is, have it laundered and sent back, and then it's pressed and folded.
Yeah, I guess it would be covered at the top.
I mean,
Yeah,
it says typically, it doesn't mean that it has to be sent off-site.
okay.
Okay. Okay, anything else on 22? 23? 24?
Just a couple of editorial things. If I can put a comma in the first line, massage parlor means any building, structure, or place, comma, other than a regularly licensed and established hospital or dispensary, comma, and I would also like to change the definition of the person to just say licensed medical professional. So I would strike licensed physician, surgeon, dentist, occupational or physical therapist, chiropractor, osteopath.
I think that listing came from the state licensing board for massage therapy. And I'll have to go back to my notes to see if I can find that.
I mean, because you could have a physician's assistant, you have practical nurse, you can have, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people who are, now maybe they're not allowed to do that, I
They
don't know.
don't, yeah, well, unless they're licensed as a massage therapist, they aren't allowed to do that.
Kind of doesn't make sense to me. A dentist can perform a massage.
Well,
It just wouldn't be done in a massage parlor.
Well, I mean, if it's a state
I don't
definition,
have a
that's
dentist
fine,
who
but
performs massage, but, I just don't.
I'm sorry.
I don't have a dentist who performs massage therapy, but.
Well, it depends on, if somebody's, and depends how literal you are with the definition. And my dentist, when he's about to give me a Novocaine,
Oh, yeah.
he does massage the point of the injection to lessen the significance of the first stick.
Yeah, but
If that's considered a massage, but not necessarily under the definition of massage parlor.
Is that what a massage is?
Yes.
So, I don't know
Thing needs to be
how,
defined like adult entertainment,
yeah.
more descriptive. Is that what it is?
But let's finish that part before we come back to the discussion of the word principle.
Lynn, is this a state definition?
I'm seeing if I can find it on my little bitty screen, so.
While you're looking for that, should we continue the conversation, or do you
Please.
want to wait?
No, please go ahead.
And the point made about the highlight of the word principal, does anybody else have the concern that I do? I mean, why would we use the word principal?
Yeah, just say whose business is to practice. No,
Yeah,
medical,
I
not
think
surgical.
principal does need to be struck, because they could say, well, it's subordinate to this other thing, and all of a sudden it's allowed, without, if you strike the word principal, it's more inclusive of.
There are hair salons that have a massage chair.
Right.
So is that considered then a massage
Spa,
parlor?
any kind of spa would have that as
And that's the only
secondary.
reason it was in there. And in fact, it would disallow a use that we currently have,
Really?
that's a standalone.
By striking the word principal, it would disallow?
No. By keeping the principal in there. I mean, we've got one that's standalone that only does.
Well, I think,
massage
a lot of if I think about some of the discussions that we've had over the years about the kinds of establishments we're trying to attract, they're typically establishments that we want to be more inclusive of services and not standalone. Where it's a full-service spa, which would include hair, nails, massage, whatever else goes along with that. With the intent of excluding an individual nail salon, an individual hair salon,
individual massage parlor. So, in my mind, by striking principal, we're in keeping with those, the direction that we've taken historically, correct? Or is it the reverse of that?
I think it's the reverse. Because we have,
I have to read it again. When I first read it, my takeaway was that by striking the word principal, we were in keeping with the direction that we've been historically.
So I'm going to skip to that section. Because we prohibit in all zoning districts massage parlors. So if it is principally and only massage, you can't do it anymore.
Right.
Further in what we're going to look at.
But
that's-
do you see how that, if they say,
But if it's not their principal business and is only a portion of or an accessory to the hair salon or the
They're okay.
hair salon and facials and nails service, then they're okay.
okay, my concern was that we were rewriting the definition of a massage parlor. So then, the reverse is true. We need to leave principal in, which would also then be applicable if we were talking about a nail salon whose business is principally the care or whatever of nails. Are we consistent that way?
We don't define nail salon.
Do
I
we
don't think
define-
at all.
It's a service.
So it's
Do we
a
define-
service, but
Professional service.
Hair salon?
I think we have it all under personal service. Yeah, hair salon's not in there. But under personal services standalone, on page 27, I know I'm jumping ahead, we have defined those buildings specifically designed and used for providing personal grooming and hygiene services. So that includes everything from hair, nails, the works.
See, now in that instance, I would have trouble with the word specifically designed for, because you can have a building that is not specifically designed for personal services that would be appropriate, not say appropriate, can accommodate a personal services business. You know, think about any of the freestanding
Correct.
or collective buildings on Highway 9.
Right, right. It's too,
I think I was trying to address the standalone portion versus those that are included in a strip center or something like that.
But I think they still want to, history has been to exclude even a
Even those in the-
standalone within a
Within a
strip
strip.
center.
Right.
A single
And a
service.
suite of
Okay.
other buildings.
Right, so let's for the moment circle specifically, and we'll come back to that
Sure.
on page 27. But so, okay, going back to 24, I think then the value of principal is to be left, the word principal is to be left in.
yep.
Does anybody see any opposition to that?
You said to be left in.
To leave it in.
And to leave it
Yes,
in.
leave it in. Correct, leave it in.
So we leave everything in, but we just add the
Comments.
comments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what were you looking up?
I was looking up massage parlor and massage therapy.
Oh, to see whether all those things are included in the state definition.
Whether or not specifically the persons, whether the professionals were listed. And I don't see the professionals listed necessarily. But it does have explicit definition for massage and massage therapy.
As long as it says principal,
So we can keep the list of persons, or we can put it at licensed medical physician,
well,
Licensed medical professional.
professional, excuse me. Is there a preference?
Well, yeah, just to make sure we're all understanding this, the paragraph, what it's saying is that a massage parlor, in its definition, can have the practice of massage done by persons other than those listed. So what it's saying is a massage parlor can be a massage parlor without, you can perform the services of massage by a person other than a licensed physician, a surgeon, a dentist, an occupational physical therapist, chiropractor, or osteopath.
It would be called something other than a massage parlor if one of those licensed medical professionals
Yes,
performed.
But it
would be
says-
a hospital or a.
Yeah.
It says by any
Physical
person
therapy.
other than these specific people. So again, going to my original comment, we have practical nurses and physician's assistants, and they're doing massage therapy. They would be classified as massage parlor under this definition.
Yeah, because they were not included on the list. So your choice of words is,
Licensed medical professionals.
Okay.
I could subscribe to that.
yep,
Anybody else?
that's good.
So we're striking everything after the word licensed
Correct.
and putting in
Medical professional.
medical professional.
Got it.
With or without?
With or without.
And it picks back up at with or without. Okay. Anything else on 24? 25? Mortuary, see funeral home?
I didn't have to bring that one up.
Yeah, 26.
Under the package sales store, it says, or distilled spirits in the original consumer container. Should it read original manufacturer's container?
I guess I think that, and I took this from the alcohol ordinance. So it's based on the fact that it's point of sale retail to an individual, not to a wholesaler or anything like that, so.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I still think it's not right, but, I mean, it's,
That's how it's written in the alcohol
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay, all right.
I mean, a consumer container to me means a beer cup, as opposed to the manufacturer's original container, which is something different.
Yeah, but, well, I'll just leave it alone.
Yeah.
I don't play what if, we could play
Yeah.
what if all along now.
Well, in some states, they're allowed to decompose and still sell at retail covered, like Louisiana, drive-through daiquiri places,
Yeah, Texas the same way.
and they'll pour gallons of beer and stuff like. At least I've seen that from a distance driving by. No, I assumed it was it was trying to cover that.
So this would actually then exclude a beer, a business where you can buy beer if it was sold to the retailer in a 6-pack and the retailer allowed you to come in and do a mix and match 6-pack, that wouldn't be in the original consumer container. Because the consumer container would be the originally intended
No.
6-pack.
No.
No, I think if you opened one of them
It's opening.
in the six-pack.
So, anyway, like I said, we can go on all night about that. I think we should just leave it alone if it's part of the state definition.
Okay, 27?
Just, if I can get under parking lot, second sentence, can I get a comma after the word typically?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're just killing Fred tonight. It's usually his job. Fred, any more comments or anything before we let Joe get back at?
No. Just get down to personal services again.
Yeah. I think if you take out the word specifically designed and used, you could just say standalone means those buildings used for well, although we're talking, is it the definition of standalone?
It's, yeah, the issue is standalone. What we've seen in the restrictions is the use of the verbiage standalone beauty salon, standalone nail salon, as being prohibited from a particular zoning.
Okay, but if we're also equally resistant to a
strip center.
standalone business, meaning a narrowly defined service, even in a strip center, how do we include that?
I think you'd have to say a single use. Of course, then they're going to put in a massage chair. But, you know, if we,
Well, maybe we just deal with it one-off like we have been. And if we deal with a one-off like we have been, in terms of just, we've got over, the stuff where we intended to be restrictive, it's in the overlays now.
well, it's in individual zoning,
Well, it's like, it's in the Birmingham,
right? In the individual zoning case, they're conditions. So, I mean, it's in there.
Are you saying that you think, like, Crabapple doesn't exclude the use of a standalone beauty salon? There's nothing, maybe in
right, well,
Birmingham it does. but
Birmingham
not-
it does, if I remember correctly. And that was by design. I wasn't personally as involved in the Crabapple one. I don't know if I would take offense without seeing the site to it being included in Crabapple, because it's intended to be more commercial than Birmingham. I wouldn't, in most cases, find it offensive to have it included in a Highway 9, which is intended to be more, more intense commercial. And we have instances of nail salons, whatever, on Highway 9.
Are you talking about the future land use, not about the overlay? Because the overlay does not exclude uses. It excludes.
Right.
It's
Right,
in
you're talking about,
zoning conditions.
yeah, but it's not.
So all that being said, I'm not taking offense to the word specifically here because of what you're intending for that definition to mean. Where I originally was taking offense to it because I was reading it differently. Unless anybody else wants to argue back,
No.
taking it out, I'm okay with leaving it in.
Oh, I found one that I missed, actually. Under pet grooming, means caring for the appearance of domesticated animals. I forgot the of. I think my fingers got a little fast on me there. All right.
Why is that in there, kept for pleasure?
Pet, definition of pet.
It's kind of disturbing.
Okay.
Okay.
Under photography studio, we strike the words "the setting and background of." So it should read, photography studio means a room or building used for professional commercial photography.
Okay.
Okay. 28.
Under plumbing shop, add the word "used" between the words establishment and primarily. So it would read, plumbing shop associated with retail sales means a commercial establishment used primarily for the sale of plumbing and lighting equipment and supplies.
Okay.
29,
Again, in the word used in the second line, receivers used for radio and television communications. And I also have a question about what you mean by broadcasting organizations. This definition includes broadcasting organizations.
Talking about television broadcasting station. It could also be radio broadcasting station.
Well, it says, the definition is radio and television station means an installation consisting of one or more transmitters or receivers used for radio and television communications. So what is a broadcasting organization?
I think it's the studio, well, and maybe it should say broadcasting studio. Because primarily what the first part references to are the
Towers?
equipment and towers. I mean to include the studios as well in there.
Well, then, let's say
Studios.
studios.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of organization. That's good.
Well, although, maybe you should say organizations and/or studios, because, studio is the place, is the physical place where it's done. The organization, broadcasting organization is the company. Like WSB-TV is a broadcasting organization, but they also have a studio.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So, broadcasting organization and/or studio?
Studios.
Okay, anything else on 29?
Yeah, I put a question mark on recreational court, private. Night before last, homeowners association made everyone take the basketball goals that are in the driveway, visible to the street, out. So, this says it does not, the term private recreational court does not include a basketball goal adjoining a driveway. Adjoining a driveway. But does that mean that you couldn't have one in the driveway?
No, it means that we didn't want to regulate them if you put them in your driveway and we're allowed.
But a homeowners association can.
Yeah, they can.
In our covenants, they're very specific about what you can and can't have for.
Right.
Yeah. Opaque versus
Okay,
non-opaque placement
Right,
versus.
but I was reading it, like you on the other one, I was reading it the opposite.
Okay, so you're all right with what it says?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Anything else on 29? 30?
Yeah, I have a question about the repair shop. And looks like it's a very, very narrow definition. Small appliances, electronics, and small motors. What about any other kind of repair shop?
Yeah.
Furniture, doll hospital, whatever.
We'd have to do some interpretation, because that, you're right, that is very limited. I don't have an or similar on there. I purposely didn't do that because I didn't know how far you wanted this thing to go. As I understand it, it's been typically interpreted to be small electronics, TV sets, whatever, those kind of things. Could it be doll repair? Yes. Could it be furniture refinishing and repair? probably not. I would imagine you probably wouldn't want that. But then again, I might be wrong. You tell me.
Yeah, but didn't emit smells or gases or didn't have a lot of flammable.
Boy, I eliminated all that.
Pretty much eliminates furniture.
Yeah.
Dollhouse, Dow
Or
repair.
watch repair or glasses repair.
Right. Yeah, I think,
Where is it restricted to? C1?
Let's see. Yeah, C1, which means it's also in C2. Let me see if it's in O&I. Just C1 and C2.
It is limited to C1 and C2.
Yes, sir.
Then I'm okay with that then. The way it's written. And you could make it more inclusive of some of those other smaller things, but then they probably aren't things you're going to want to limit to C1 or C2 anyway. You know, a watch repair or a glasses repair or a doll repair wouldn't necessarily be a C2. It's not an intense use that would require a C2 placement. Or because this is motors and appliances, there could be, you know, machinery running to do the repair. There's going to be fuel, oil. That'd be more appropriate for C1, C2. So I'm okay with the way it's written. All right?
yep.
Okay. Anything else on 30? 31? 32? 33? 34? 35? 36? We're back to that principle, but I guess based on the discussion we had before, we're better off to leave the word principle in for the same purposes or same rationale that we did before.
Well, and it does allow, if, for instance, a salon were to perform a tattoo for cosmetics and other reasons, you know, that I've seen happen,
Yeah.
they can do that as a small part of their business.
Somebody with no eyebrows.
Eyebrows, yeah.
Okay.
Lip liner, believe it or not.
No.
Although that sounds painful to me.
On that definition of tattoo, can we take out the word artists? And also take out the words, but not limited to.
So you're striking by artists?
Just the word artists. So it would read, performing the practice of physical body adornment by using techniques of body piercing and tattooing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on 36? 37? 38? 39? Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Okay, so now having completed that process.
Yeah.
I think, so it's like, what do we do with this?
Yep.
So, I guess we have a couple of options, right?
We do?
Well, actually, based on some of the discussion we had, we do have to have it come back to you guys for a couple of considerations, right?
I think the only thing outstanding was commercial equipment, excuse me.
Yep. Commercial equipment.
Yes, sir.
Everything else, we're suggesting can go forward with the changes that we've made this evening.
Yes, sir. And I believe the council is anxious to get the rest of this forward.
Okay, so that being said, and I wouldn't have a problem if this went forward. You guys, I guess, let me make a statement and you guys assess it. In my mind, it would probably be okay for it to go forward, trusting that you guys would put in a definition for commercial equipment that we can let the mayor and council wrestle over. With the benefit of an explanation as to why we felt it important that it be included.
Okay.
Anybody else take offense to that, take any issue with that? Nope.
So you're saying,
So
to
the act-
clarify that I have to get this packet ready for a first read, so tomorrow I'll work on commercial equipment.
Yes.
And
Include
you'll
it.
trust that whatever they approve will be,
Well, I'm trusting that you will include an appropriate definition of commercial equipment, which would be in the nature of what you've done for commercial vehicle. And then when you present this to the mayor and council, you include the rationale for our concern and the requested inclusion of commercial equipment. That we felt that that subordinate paragraph was really was improperly placed there, and was better, and the mayor and council are better served going forward with the definition of commercial equipment, so that it is separate and gives them definitions that they can use.
With that clarification, I think I can take it all.
Can.
Yes, as long as, we're clear that that paragraph was leading to the commercial equipment definition. I think I can then bring that forward and feel comfortable that you all have truly recommended all that's included in that.
Yeah, and clearly you guys are better at this than we are, and you've demonstrated that you get it, and I'm making a broad-based assumption that a definition of a commercial equipment will be something inclusive like you've done for commercial vehicle. I don't know what those definitions, what those details are going to be, but I'm assuming, based on how we understand each other, that you're going to provide something
Yes, sir.
similar to that for the mayor and council to consider.
All right.
We don't have to hold this up
Okay.
for another month to get back to an interpretation of one paragraph that's likely to be similar to the standard that you've set with the definition of commercial vehicle.
Okay.
Okay? But I really, I want to be, you and I and George have talked about the importance sometimes of the emphasis given in the course of the definition. And, sometimes circumstances in those meetings cause us to hurry through some of that stuff. I would just like to ensure that we request the emphasis be given to that, so it's not just brushed over by the mayor and council. They do truly understand why we asked for that.
I will.
Okay. Then I'm good with that. So I guess then, may I have a motion to have this go forward with some of those conditions placed up on staff?
I move that we approve RZ 11-11, conditional upon staff making changes that we've talked about here tonight, and also conditional upon the staff coming up with a definition for commercial equipment as also discussed tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks, everybody, on that one.
All
There you
right.
are.
The next one should be quick. RZ 1112, I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and read it. Just amending the City of Milton zoning ordinance to revise the roadside vending administrative permit in section 64-1607 of the zoning ordinance. Based on cleaning up those permitted uses in C1 and C2, the council did ask us to remove roadside vending as an option in C1 and C2. And so the change in 64-1607A simply removes C1 and C2 as an option for this administrative permit. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and give
Okay.
me 1 second to catch up. I'm sorry, 1 more second. I want to make sure in case our chairman asks me anything about what we did, I can explain it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that was here.
While you're working on that, drawing.
Yeah, I'm good now. Well, go ahead, Fred.
Well, I just, on roadside vending, like, when I went through this, I guess the question I have is define roadside vending.
Funny you ask that question. We have a definition.
Okay.
And it means the sale of merchandise such as clothing, crafts, household items, firewood, etc. from a temporary table or cart. What we have typically seen is that these are the folks selling rugs and by the side of the road. I mean, it's
Roses.
What?
roses,
Velvet Elvis?
Velvet Elvis, all of those sorts of things.
Okay.
And
All right, now, that I understand, but if, and we approve Crabapple Market, correct? That's okay to have Crabapple Market. But are we saying within Crabapple Market, nobody can sell roses?
no, you mean the farmer's market? The
Or is
farmer's
that
market
not
is.
defined as a roadside vendor?
It's not.
It's the next one.
It's under roadside produce stands.
Which is the administrative use permit right before this one. Which is
That's how
very
farmers
similar.
markets are allowed over there.
Okay, well, no, I didn't have a problem with that. But within that definition, then you're saying that it can only be produce. I couldn't sell
Doesn't this,
gold chains.
yeah, or craft, jewelry?
Well, yeah.
I'm looking to see if it relates to the use in there or just the requirements. Roadside produce stand means a use offering either, either farm-grown prepared food products such as fruits, vegetables, canned foods, or prepared packaged meats for sale from a vehicle or temporary structure. Consumption of food on site is prohibited. Yeah, it's not really intended for jewelry, handmade jewelry, that sort of thing, but
I know,
it goes on.
correct.
Like at the Alpharetta Farmers Market.
That's where,
You can have everything from
Right.
produce and flowers to artwork to pottery to jewelry.
to Lions Club rooms.
Oh, yeah, okay. So are we trying to make ours more, our crabapple market, more solely produce? And this is obviously a separate discussion from
Well,
roadside
yeah, but-
vending. I get roadside vending, but I want to make sure that we haven't done ourselves a disservice by the thriving market that we'd like to have in crabapple.
I would almost, and we haven't been tough on this, but I would almost consider what the Alpharetta folks are doing as more of a flea market versus a farmer's market. I mean, the farmer's market is for produce and
Right.
foodstuffs. It really
Yeah.
is.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right.
If that's what we're intending, okay.
Yeah, that's all I was
But is that
trying to
what we're
clarify. Is that what we
intending?
want? Right.
That's how I wrote it.
Is that what we're intending?
That's how I intended to write it. Now, like I said, if you all take a different viewpoint on that, now's the time to change it.
How do you say it differently? I mean,
How do you say it
No,
differently?
no. I'm just kind of confused as to where you're going with it,
Well,
I guess.
roadside vending to me means a pop-up thing at an intersection,
Right.
like at a gas station or like you see
Right.
when you're traveling down to Daytona Beach.
Sure.
Pardon?
Well,
Yeah,
Right.
well, it could be boiled peanuts, or it could be all
No,
this.
boiled
No,
peanuts are farmer grown.
Farmer grown.
There you go. So it's
So roses would be okay? I just can't
Maybe,
have,
yeah.
according to this, I can't have a tent.
Not the Krispy Kreme.
Right.
But, you know, I guess the difference for me between roadside vending versus a farmer's market is roadside vending to me means like a pop-up thing. It's not an organized commercial event that's sanctioned by the city to be a gathering of the community for the purpose of sale and of fruit, vegetables, produce, and crafts, antiques, whatever, that are, you know, it's intended to be the part of the fabric of the community. That's different than roadside vending, where you can buy a sofa out of the back of a, 30-foot rider truck, and, oh, by the way, get your Velvet Elvis too, you know?
How about I suggest this, because one of the things that we are supposed to tackle late in the summer is the allowance of farmers markets and other ag uses as part of, other changes to the zoning ordinance. Why don't we tackle farmers markets specifically with their own administrative permit separately from a roadside produce stand? Because typically, besides the farmers market that's in Crabapple, what we have are just these folks that are really doing their own produce stand. I mean, really, truly doing selling their own tomatoes or whatever they're growing on their property, and they're, so.
Well,
We're okay with
those are okay with an AG1 use.
Absolutely.
If I want to grow a tomato in my backyard and put it on the curb for sale, I can do that in AG1. That's still different than the sofas and the Velvet Elvis. But what I want to make sure we don't do is make our farmers markets so exclusive that you can't have, somebody who's a wonderful quilt maker, or somebody who makes really interesting, or even boring for that matter, birdhouses. But it's a local, a local resident that's their outlet. And it's a part of the fabric of what we are is Milton.
I understand, but I think we probably ought to tackle that separately.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. I just wanted to get the definition more than anything else.
It's a good question.
So that, because the one that Roses popped up is the reason I brought it up as well. Pine straw, we considered that as,
Well, again, it's really roadside produce should be food products, but
because we have them right now
yeah, you grow it yourself.
on Highway 9.
Okay, so all that being said, which, if we go back to our purpose this evening, which is to discuss roadside vending.
Right.
It's really for the removal of roadside vending from C1 and C2 to support it only in M1 and M2.
That's correct.
There have not been any other changes to the definition, correct?
Correct.
So it's really just a matter of us adopting the exclusion or the elimination of C1 and C2.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That being said, any questions or comments to the requested change?
Nope.
Hearing none, may I entertain a motion?
I move that we approve RZ 11-12 as written.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Kramer, seconded by, was a tie between Curtis and Fred.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Let Fred.
Want to give
let
Curtis
Fred
one so
take
he's
it
in the
easy.
record?
Curtis.
He's trying to pad his resume.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Mills.
Google.
Good.
I like
Right.
Any discussion besides the innocuous stuff that we discussed? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
The next item is RZ 11-06. This is under old business. Text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create the film and movie media productions administrative permit. Ms. Lynn Tully.
I probably should have changed the title of that to to permits for media productions, because we did make that change. But you can see the changes that were made from the last meeting have been reflected in this new set. I have particularly looked at loosening the lighting section, eliminating the tie back to the lighting section of the code as well as the signage section. Although I would note that
Can we-
in 64.
Before you go too far, can we go, I think we should go, there's only a couple pages. Can we
Sure.
go page by page?
Absolutely.
So I'm
me
sorry
to
I
read them
stopped
all?
you, but you
That's
want to?
okay.
No, I just, if everybody's read it, can we just ask questions based, like we did a minute ago on the other one? Just say, do you have any questions regarding the changes that were done to page 1, 2, or 3? Otherwise, Lynn, I would just to say we're assuming what you've done is okay because we've read it and we understand it.
Okay.
Okay. So, starting with page 1, does anybody have any comments or questions on page 1?
No.
I do, and, which is, the fact that you called out on the very bottom about this will also need to be addressed in the sign ordinance, because I'm, part of that committee. Are you suggesting that we need to write into the sign ordinance the authority given to the Director of Community Development?
Yes, sir.
That authority? Okay,
Specifically for this purpose, and I would narrowly write that.
okay,
And I'll do the same thing for lighting.
okay. I'll make note of that. Would you also make note of that for
Yes,
Angela?
sir.
So Angela understands that too. Between the two of us, we'll make sure that gets written in.
Okay. Oh, also, I should point out, there are some film industry representatives who may want to speak on this item when we get through with our discussion. We
You
didn't-
poor folks have been here all night long waiting for that.
Learned about piggery.
You also learned about how mundane these meetings can be.
Might make a good documentary.
Yeah.
Piggeries.
Piggeries and the discussion thereof.
We should be to
Well-
the media section in a couple of hours, don't you think?
Yeah. That being said, before we get into the discussion, are there any general comments that you would like to make to us as a commission?
Fill out a card here as well.
Okay.
I'm Dale Sizemore. I'm with Information System Integrators. I live in 6130 Penn Oak Lane in Alpharetta. I've gotten involved in the film industry and created some technology that helps attract films and media of all kinds to the state of Georgia. In my activities, I have had a lot of discussions with production companies, up to including them inviting me to be a member of their production team on the management board. What I have heard is that anything that folks in Georgia can do to help streamline and attract filming to a particular community or state is very, very well received, up through and including international production and investors. There are a number of folks that consider the Georgia tax credit, for example, to be a major incentive to bring business here. Also, conversely, there are many communities who have made it either very, very easy or very, very hard to conduct filming in their communities, whether it's through economic fees or just the policies. And I was speaking last night at about 6:30 with a location manager who was reciting some of the terrible experiences he had downtown with a $60 million film, and they said it was just a real nightmare for them to try to conduct business, and they were telling each other what a miserable experience it was. So to that end, I commend y'all for proactively looking at ways of being able to improve the receptivity of the filming and TV community into the areas. I know that there have been films here in the Alpharetta-Milton area, and I also know that there's many more coming. So anything y'all can do to create a nimble, easy-to-consume experience for those folks, they will follow the path of least resistance. I've been talking with film producers this weekend and helping them raise money for that kind of stuff. So I hear them. Time is of the essence. They work like bats. I mean, they sleep during the morning, and they flit around. They make lots of changes. An example, the location manager said yesterday, he said in one community where they required 3 days to approve a generator the permission. He said, we'll move that generator 3 times in one day. In the city of Atlanta, the folks down there recounted there was 192 permits done in 28 days at one production. That's moving pretty fast. So whenever y'all are putting these plans and good intentions together, make sure that you do it very, very sensibly, that protects your community, of course, but as a rule, I've observed that it's a pretty clean, consistent, considerate industry. You don't have to build new buildings or tax allocation districts to bring economic development to your community. There are ways of being able to do it very, very smoothly and streamlined. I know Lynn has had a chance to do a good bit of research on that as well. So in general, I would just say I commend you all for proactively doing it. I welcome to see what transpires from some of these actions, and I applaud you all on all your deep and probably unappreciated work from the rest of us out here.
But there's volumes watching us on the digital.
I'm sure there are, yes, sir. I can hear the channels coming from the hockey, playoffs right now. But thank you again for the opportunity of having any comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you like. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. The first time we talked about this, I guess it was last month, we talked a little bit about a fee, and the fees seem to be arbitrary to me, and we're not going to generate a huge amount of revenue from this industry, probably, no matter what we do. But it's always something we think about. But I didn't have a sense of what kind of money they would really care about. Some of these fees, just to make a commercial, I mean, they can spend a huge amount of money. This could be rounding error to them. I was curious if you had an opinion about that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Fees are an interesting point of contention. Sometimes communities start lumping these things together with finishing your basement and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can't take my basement many places, but they could, in fact, say, this is too expensive, I'm out of here. Some of the communities, I know Roswell's fee is $250. They raised to that. A few folks I've spoken to in the industry seem to think that was pretty expensive just for the privilege of coming and spending more money in your community. And one production manager, I asked specifically for a $6 to $8 million film. He said it cost him about $30,000 a week in pre-production time. If we're trying to, nickel and dime them for $250, $300 and run off $30,000 for a week, that doesn't make sense.
I think you misunderstood my question. It wasn't a matter of nickel and diming. I think it was a matter of not accidentally setting a fee that
scares them off?
Defeated the purpose of what we were trying to do.
I agree, and that was kind of my point. I'm sorry I was a little circumspect in getting to that point. I apologize. I agree with you completely. It's good to have a practical fee that says, hey, this is not just free. Some places it is free. But, the $30 to $100 a day kind of a thing is what I'm seeing in the industry that is being received very well.
And are those fees typical of a particular department of the city being required to maybe visit with someone from the industry if there's going to be something that is unique where you're trying to ensure that the city's expert on that particular aspect of what it will mean to the city it's just their time and effort?
Typically, those $30 to $100 fees are the base fee for a simple type of application. I believe you all have very wisely put it into a simple and a complex: traffic closures, lane closures, pyrotechnics, those kinds of things. If you get into those kinds of more complex or specialized approvals, then I think additional fees are very appropriate. When you get into misconceptions is when people, I know at Fulton County's changed this, but at one point they wanted food inspections for the catering of their own staff. That's been amended, fortunately, but the industry just went nuts over that one. But if the base fee, keep it simple and practical. As you get into specialties, they expect that. I mean, if they're going to be blowing up a building and rolling a car and all that, they know to have that. If they're going to have representation of police that look like paramilitary or something like that, they know to expect police and sheriff and other people to be on site, and they're willing to pay for that kind of stuff. So your point's very well taken. Yes, sir. bring the specialized departments in with their specialized fees on that as necessary. But again, a lot of them just want to do streamlined, fast stuff. It's fast, easy money. Make sure the common denominator is fast, easy, and straightforward.
Right.
That's my suggestion anyway.
Another question I've got is, obviously, we're doing our best to collect examples from surrounding areas to make sure that we're not inconsistent, but we're compatible with our surrounding communities, that we're an easy area to come to. Are there other municipalities that you're familiar with, whether it's even across the country, that have palatable ordinances that are inviting, or are we pioneering something here?
There are a number of them that have done a pretty good job of it. Most recently, I looked at New York City and Washington, D.C. They had some pretty interesting components, as you might imagine.
I think they'd be very tough.
On the other hand, they had a couple of good things. As part of my day-to-day activities, I try to assemble a kind of a best practice of what's been happening. I've looked at New Mexico and Washington, and I don't even consider California. they're a different group, but Louisiana and places, New Mexico and so forth. So a lot of what you're doing is very consistent around the country. There isn't that much that you could really ask for. I mean, you want to know who's doing it, what's the nature of it, is there vehicles, special stuff that's going on. I mean, there's only so much that you really can't ask for. So what you're doing, there are best practices. There are a number of communities in Georgia that are trying to do the same thing. I was in a meeting this morning with the Metro County Commission. They want to do the same thing as well. So, and by the way, the Camera Ready Communities program is a very good program that was established by the Georgia Film Commission. They don't do permitting. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the purview. They've said that absolutely is not part of their thing. They don't have the bandwidth to do it, or the resources to do it if they wanted to. They're busy trying to be the liaison and concierge to 20, 40, $50 million films. So what you're doing is very appropriate at your level. That is a good, I have good intent program. It's not a tool by which to implement and streamline it at the community level. Not their fault. It's just apples and oranges. So what you're doing is implementing tools by which people can actually conduct that. And that's very appropriate.
Sure. Thank you.
And I will be happy to continue to stay in dialogue with Lynn for any other good examples that we run across. And also, if it's something that says, what a terrible idea this was, make sure y'all don't think about doing something like that. But most every week I run across something else that says, that's a good idea. An advantage of doing this kind of formality, not overly formality, but some formality to the process, is that you get to capture more information about the economic impact of this in your community. There's tools that will allow you to say how many commercials, how many feature films, what was the spending, all that kind of stuff, which is also pretty important, not only to your constituents, but to be able to determine, is there something else you need to do? Does someone want to build a studio here? Or whatever the issues are, you have facts from which to work on.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Or Lynn knows how to get me. I don't live far from here.
Correct.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
In the interest of full disclosure, I did ask him to also review our proposed ordinance, and he gave me a few comments, so that was good.
Excellent.
Good feedback.
So he has looked at ours?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That helps.
All right. Well, then, thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate your patience. It's unfortunate this is this late on the agenda, but thanks for hanging in.
I have had a number of dealings with government, so I recognize it. I have appreciation for what y'all go through. It is really an unsung hero's task here. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay. So we were finishing on page 1, and my concern and questions were satisfied. Anybody else, anything on page 1? Okay, page 2. I have something on page 2. I'm not remembering why I wrote this. My question was maybe changed with input from the community development manager, and I don't know why I wrote that anymore. I guess it's already captured in the end of the line on number 5, where it says, are not all inclusive and additional conditions may be imposed at the discretion of the community development director to minimize anticipated adverse effects. So I think maybe my question that I had earlier, I hadn't read that detail. So I'm okay with 2. Anybody else have anything on 2?
Well, I had one, I had a question. Did we finally decide that 14 consecutive days? I know that Lynn has the approval to renew those, but was it 2 weeks that we finally decided was the number
That's
for a single production? Because my question was, is that, is that reasonable? 14, 21, 10?
From what I understand from the representatives that I've talked to, for low-impact activities, actually, that's quite a bit.
Okay.
Commercials typically done over a
Right,
weekend,
on
4 or
small.
5 days at the most.
Okay.
Yeah, and
fine.
Fred, and we do in high impact A says
Right.
more than 14.
More than- right.
So
Yeah.
we might, it's an arbitrary line, I guess, that we're drawing, but as long
That's
as
fine.
we're
No,
consistent, and we do have a break point. I don't,
That was the only thing I had there.
okay. Any other question on that one? Okay, anything else on 2? Okay, 3?
The film industry representative asked if digital signature
Yeah, I
are
got the
acceptable.
same thing. Is that standard and customary to the industry? Where they're
For
asking
them,
for
probably.
digital,
For us, not so much, but.
I imagine it's, speed of,
Right.
For the same reason physicians went to it and drugstores.
yeah.
It was digital and, all the numbers are correct and with drugstores, DEA's there and everything.
As
And
long
it
as
became
we,
easy for the consumer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem, an issue with taking it as long as you don't. But
Well, the only qualifier I'd put on it is, I do believe there's value to the speed to accommodate them if there's going to be changes made or requests made that require a signature. But I also want to make sure, from a legal standpoint, that there is some disclaimer that says that by our accepting a digital signature, that it is legally and binding, just like an original.
okay.
Good point.
I don't know how or where you write that, but I think that's an
I'll
important.
ask our attorney to come up with something. I'm sure there's something out there. If the IRS can take digital signatures, then
Yeah.
we ought to
Right.
be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I bumped into it the other day where they had to have a live signature. It was ridiculous. It was extraordinarily inconvenient to do it, and it added time to a time-sensitive issue. It was ridiculous when I could sign the paper, scan it, and send it, and they could have had it 4 minutes later. But when you're talking about the kinds of dollars that this would be bringing to the community, I don't want to hold that up, provided we have a disclaimer that says that everything they're agreeing to is still legal and binding.
And I think the attorney can put that on the application. It doesn't necessarily have to be in here. We can just call out original or digital signatures. And then, like I said, we'll place the binder on the application itself, and that way, once they sign it, then it's done.
Okay, anything else on 3? Okay, 4? Five?
Yep.
Okay,
Under 5, on 5, should be the second line last as stated in section 1616.5.
Good catch,
dang,
Fred.
you're
Yeah.
good. Fred, you
Fred,
came
we all
through.
know.
He still got it.
He does. Sometimes he's a late bloomer, but
I
he's
wanted
still
to jump
got it.
in before Joe jumped in there.
No obsolescence here.
Man, we knew Fred would come through in the end. Anything else on 5, Fred?
No.
6? There's nothing on 6. I was
Okay, good,
joking.
thank you.
Okay,
Threw me
it's a
off
blank
there.
page. Okay, so, again, I guess our action is to support this with a motion to say move this forward with the changes and/or questions resolved as discussed this evening. Okay, may I entertain a motion to that effect? No one?
I will. I move that we approve RZ 11-06 as written.
As written and discussed?
And discussed.
Because there were a couple of questions we
Right.
proposed,
Changes that we discussed.
including like Ken Gerard weighing in on a couple of things.
Well, and that catch on page 5.
Yeah. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Kramer, seconded by Commissioner Jennifer Fletcher.
Yeah,
It was me, so sorry.
that's all right.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Okay, you ready? Next item is RZ 11-07, text amendments to the zoning ordinance to revise the use regulations for the C1 Community Business District.
Man, who built this agenda tonight?
My God.
You all did.
I know, yeah.
By deferring
What
everything
were
last
we
month.
thinking?
All right. I'll start with the first one, 1107, revising the use regulations for the C1 Community Business District. If you'll skip to pages 1 through 3, section 64-775. You can see where we have attempted to address all of those issues brought forward from council regarding removal of some more high-intensity items from the C1 permitted uses list. That includes removal of laundromat, personal services, including barber shop and beauty shop, recycling center collecting, gas stations with or without convenience stores. Yeah. Oh, excuse me, that one was left in. I simply moved it. Sorry. Misread the formatting on that. This was as per the recommendation of the council at a work session where we went through and kind of marked off what things should be moved. Several of these you'll see show up in the C2 as a permitted use outright. Are there any questions? I did make one clarification, I'm sorry, on why for communication service to reference specifically telecommunications facility per section 54, so that it was just clearly intending to denote those.
We didn't know what communication service was.
Yeah, communication service was just much too broad.
Okay. Let's do the same thing. Anybody have any questions on page 1? Page 2?
I have a question. We don't define convenience stores anywhere, do we?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Yep. It was back in that.
Back
one
in
of
the
first
definitions?
Ours that we had. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason, Joe, the reason I questioned it back there was the fact that we defined it that it has to have gasoline to be called a convenience store. Is that correct? My interpretation.
Always in association with the dispensing of motor fuels as an accessory use. So
Right.
yes, it must have gasoline as a convenience, to be called a convenience store.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Does that resolve your question?
Huh?
Okay. Just to make sure I'm crystal clear, on 00,
Yes, sir?
we're removing roadside vending because that was specifically moved to M1 and M2.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then gasoline stations, with or without,
You
were
could
added to
have-
C1?
No, I simply moved them. Gasoline stations with or without convenience stores was moved to be TT, because TT was originally recycling center.
Okay. So nobody's taking exception to it being there, it's just the fact that it's been moved. I didn't understand that, but I guess I do now. Okay, and page 3. Okay, are we done? We just, I guess we're asking for a motion to accept this with,
Yes, sir.
we didn't make
Take each
any
of these
motion.
separately.
Did we make any changes?
No?
We did not.
Okay.
Fred,
I
have at it.
move, I move we approve RZ 11-07 text amendment
Is there a
to the
second?
zoning.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Do you want?
Yes, RZ 11-08, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to revise the use regulations for the C2 Community Business District.
Similarly to how we handled C1, we have deleted a couple of things here that were fairly redundant because the section 64-798 does reference that any permitted uses in the C1 district are also allowed in C2. Therefore, we didn't need to include landscaping business or lawn service business or plant nursery. So those were deleted, simply to keep from being too redundant. And then we added standalone personal services, including barbershop and beauty shop, bail bondsman, laundromat and coin-operated laundry, commercial amusements, both indoor and outdoor, flea markets and secondhand surplus retailers, again, not to include roadside vending, liquor and package sales stores, recycling center, collection, and video arcades.
Okay. Back to earlier discussion relative to thrift stores,
Yes,
i.e.
sir.
Alpharetta's point of not wanting them. And they passed, well, it's apparently, I don't know whether they passed, but they refused to accept it on Highway 9, so at the corner of Cogburn and is that something that we should have a special permit for or not? Call it a retail? What would you call it?
Well, our
Goodwill store.
definition of flea market and secondhand surplus includes anything selling secondhand articles. That includes antiques, curios, cut-rate merchandise, overstocks, basically. They've sold it from one retailer to another.
Okay.
Typically, it goes on to say that it's typically held outdoors and in individually rented stalls. So,
Whoop.
you know,
Yeah.
that's not always the way. But, you know,
typically.
flea
What
markets
happens
are
to,
typically outdoors and in the rented
Where you
stall.
live most of the time.
One of my favorite stores.
Does that mean we would not re-permit them if they were to change hands?
Well, that's an Alpharetta, I'm just saying.
Well,
We
or.
would allow them in C2.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of spaces for them to go was my deal. Yeah, that's where I was going. I was trying to make sure that we included them because
What about a consignment? I mean, by definition, consignment, workload consignment, whether it's high-end or Goodwill, I mean.
Secondhand
reselling it,
articles.
Yeah, so,
Consignment stores would be in C2 as well.
I don't know the whole story on what Alfreda's point. It could have been something totally different. But
We already have one.
okay.
under W,
Yes, sir.
laundromat and coin-operated laundry. Coin-operated laundry is not defined anywhere, but laundromat is defined as a place where you have coin-operated machines. Can we just take "and coin-operated laundry" out?
That's fine.
I'm sorry, Joe, can you say it again? I was looking at something else.
Under W, it says laundromat and coin-operated laundry. Laundromat is defined. Coin-operated
includes
laundry is
coin-operated.
not.
So we're striking,
Striking "and coin-operated laundry."
great, thank you.
The definition for laundromat includes
Includes,
coin-operated.
Yeah, okay. Anything else on page 1? No? Page 2?
Nope.
All right. No other questions or comments? May I have a motion?
I move that we approve RZ 11-08 with the addition of the change that we discussed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 6-0 approved. Approved with changes.
Next one is RZ 11-09, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create prohibited uses in all districts.
This does exactly what we said. Prohibits fortune tellers, massage parlors, pool halls, escort and dating service, and tattoo, body art, or body piercing establishments as defined.
Because they are defined,
Yes, sir?
the designations should track the words. So, for example, fortune tellers is not defined, but fortune-telling establishments is defined.
Okay.
And I would
I wrote the
capitalize these.
definitions afterwards.
I'm sorry?
I wrote the definitions after we had
Oh.
done this part, but that's fine.
And since they are defined terms, I think we should capitalize
Sure.
them.
Okay.
And it should be fortune-telling establishment, massage parlor, singular, tattoo and body art, or piercing establishments.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion?
I move we approve RZ 11-09,
With
prohibited uses in all districts,
With the changes
with the
discussed?
changes.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so approved with changes.
Next item is RZ 1110, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create separation standards for high-traffic uses.
All right, and this too you have seen before. Rewritten slightly differently to include this separation between each of the following uses from another of the same type use. As you know, it creates a 1 mile clustering buffer between an existing freestanding fast food restaurant or an existing restaurant with drive-through facilities or gas pumping station with or without convenience stores. And then it gets into defining how that measurement is made. But I think most at issue is the size of the buffer and what's necessary. And I do apologize, we weren't able to get new maps at this point. Our GIS system is kind of a little haywire on us. We're having to rebuild.
I just want to say, I think George was smart staying home tonight. I don't think he's anywhere, pardon?
Oh, you don't think he's really
I think he's
there?
just at home,
Watching us and laughing? Is that it?
cooling his heels and saying, have at it.
I'm sorry?
Sure.
Okay, yes.
Sure.
You can do it quietly, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I distracted
all right.
from where you were going. Okay, so I get what we're supposed to be doing. Any questions on this one, without the benefit of the maps, obviously?
No questions, really. I think 1 mile is too far.
There's a half mile inserted for you to view, if that would
I
help.
think half mile is much more appropriate.
Okay.
What do other similar communities use? Because either distance is
They don't.
semi-arbitrary.
They don't. And we looked for buffer distances. We looked for, in other communities, some sort of separation between this and residential. If you might remember, that's how some of this got started, between gas stations and residential uses. And we simply couldn't find anything that was consistent. And then when we started looking at it a little bit more closely, we tied it down to traffic generation. The fact that they would create additional traffic on what are typically very high traffic areas already. So that clustering them tended to exacerbate the problem.
So with the mile, I mean, even though you haven't done updated maps, the 2 maps you gave us, if it's a mile, I mean, there could be no new development of any of these on Highway 9?
For those specific uses, that's correct.
And if it's a half mile, there's a small gap in there where they might be able to?
Yes, sir.
I think it's where it's more likely to affect us will be down the road with the development of Arnold Mill.
Oh, yeah, way over here,
Yeah. Where, and you think about the intersection of Arnold Mill right now at the Silos Kroger intersection.
Right.
There's just one gas station, right? The
Drugstore.
the BP.
Is that in Milton,
No.
It's not in Milton.
though? So
That
it
is
doesn't
not
matter.
in Milton.
So basically, the first one in is the last one.
Well, on the
Just a
southern
mile.
end, because I don't know what the scale is on this
Well,
map.
you wouldn't, there's not a parcel available
No,
to
here.
put one down there anyway.
But on the north end,
Yeah, so one of those two is gonna be the only one.
that's what we're basically saying.
Well, either way, whether it's a half mile or a mile, they're out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It
These
means
two
if
up
you
here.
take that circle of half a mile and plop it there, you can't have 2 of the same uses within it,
All
no
right.
matter what.
Yeah. Right, okay.
So that being said, Joe, do you feel strongly about your half-mile statement?
Yes.
And let me offer a conflicting or contradicting opinion on that. If I think about the only development we probably have to come, which is Arnold Mill, and we're talking about a master plan for that, and in the discussions that we've had, we've talked about trying to concentrate the development on again, this is just broad brushstroke because we can't begin to entertain those discussions until we get community input and have the charrettes and, be led appropriately through a master planning process. But all that qualifying put on, there was some value, there was some consideration given to trying to compress the industrial development or the commercial development to more isolated areas and be different than, Highway 9. So I guess maybe I'm not in a conflicting opinion. I'm in a supportive opinion by saying there is some value to thinking about if we're going to concentrate those kinds of things. There is maybe some flexibility that we need to a closer, maybe even closer. Or maybe set it at a half a mile today
and allow somebody to approach mayor and council for consideration for an exception to something closer to support a master plan that would compress those types of development with a master plan.
By saying a half a mile, are we opening up anything else unintentionally on Highway 9? If that's a mile,
That would leave some things that are potentially unzoned. Or-
yeah, unzoned to be petitioned to be zoned.
Right, right. Around Deerfield Parkway and Highway 9.
Why is, I mean, you could have written down 2 miles, and I'm not sure that my reaction would have been any different, because it's an arbitrary number to me. What would a half a mile accomplish that a mile wouldn't from a conceptual standpoint? I mean, what would be the difference?
Half a mile.
You guys should talk
In
more
any
often.
direction. In any direction. You know, he knows it's easy to trip me up. So,
It's like, now, shoot, what am I going to do with my time?
I'm not getting it, well, what I'm not getting is the vision impact. You know, clearly, we don't want to replicate Highway 9 leading up to, I mean, Windward leading up to Highway 9, McDonald's, KFC, you know, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you could swing a bad analogy. Anyway, a lot of them close together. We don't want to replicate that. Half a mile doesn't replicate that. But it just seems so arbitrary to me. I'm not sure what we would accomplish. And really, it ought to be our vision, right? A vision and science or math, what makes a difference that drives that, not an arbitrary number. And I don't know how you hip shoot that.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that either. I just think, looking at the depiction on the maps, the half mile versus a mile seems to be a long way. And it just basically eliminates everything.
That's
On its path.
twice as
Well,
far as half.
It eliminates everything except for the fact that anybody reserves the right to come before mayor and council to ask for an exception.
True.
And it also, at this point, is in keeping, well, if you look at the only undeveloped area we've got, which is potentially going to have more commercial, would be Arnold Mill, it's still, without changing anything from a mile, allows for a master plan to call for something different. And in the course of the master plan, it could be approved for something supporting those business concentrations I was talking about. That's why I'd be more inclined to leave it at a mile today, understanding that that's what the boards and mayor and council are for, is to allow those exceptions, and then and hear them, and as appropriate, grant them, and then also allow for consideration to different densities or concentrations later in the course of a master plan of a new area.
I think I would lean in that direction too, but my basis for that consideration may not be the same as everyone else. I mean, we're not 100 square or 100 miles square. You can get to fast food restaurants and gas stations pretty easily. It doesn't bother me to have to drive to a different community that wants to have that. But that's...
Well, and in keeping with what Lynn said before, too, I think that there are creative ways that we have not benefited from in the city of Milton to date with alleviating the traffic issues on the thoroughfares. If you do master plan an area to allow for a higher concentration of those businesses to take place and allow an infrastructure to support that takes the traffic off of the main thoroughfare so that you still get the benefit of flow-through traffic. And those services are benefited from on an off street where it's literally only one block off, but it takes that slowed turning traffic out of the flow. It's a potential solution to what is a historical problem. You look at some of the traffic calming things that Lou Oliver is thinking about bringing to Crabapple, And it really is moving the business concentration off of the crossroads and onto the secondary streets. So that being said, I'd like to keep it at a mile and then allow for those considerations we've already talked about. Joe, your turn in the tete-a-tete.
It's just, and I don't have strong arguments in my favor. It just seems from the depiction on the maps, a mile is a long way to go, and I would hate to create an ordinance that with thought in mind is that, we'll just go ahead and grant exceptions to it all the time, or allow exceptions, or at least allow applications, as opposed to being a little bit more reasonable and kind of cutting down on the request for variances, should there be any.
Well, I'm not suggesting for a minute that we should be granting exceptions right and left. I think that's why the process is there. If it makes sense with an exception, you allow it. If not, that's why the ordinance is written the way it is. Okay, well, maybe for the moment, can we put that one aside, and unless there's any other questions on page 1? Lynn, can you just clarify me in your comment about this may affect groceries with gas stations as well?
Well,
And obviously, grocery stores with gas stations are newer.
They're newer type use,
Yes.
But this would affect, for instance, if Kroger put a gas station island out in front of in their current parking lot, then all of a sudden we've created another existing use which we'd have to buffer from. Now, our Kroger happens to be in Alpharetta, so maybe it's not as big a deal, but if we had one,
Well, Lynn,
if Target, for instance, wanted to put them in.
but this, it says,
Not that they would, but.
gas pumping stations with or without. Okay, gotcha.
But they're adding them to a lot of different types of businesses.
Yeah. Now, I remember the old Hess station that didn't have a convenience store. It just had like a pay stand. And
Right.
I don't know that they still do those anymore, but somebody out there may be enterprising and start those up again.
New Jersey, believe it or not, has gas stations and drugstores. Drugstores have taken on gas in New Jersey.
Really? That's interesting.
Which is amazing, because the margin is so skinny on gas. And you
People-
can be so wrong. It's
Just
interesting
to
that they
get
would
you
choose
in.
to be in it.
Just to get you in.
Yeah, just traffic.
Same,
generating.
why did we start putting convenience food in drugstores? And food stores said, okay, we're going to put drugstores in our grocery store.
Wow.
Okay. Well, would somebody care to make a motion? Unless there's any, I'm sorry, I missed anything else or anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, can somebody make a motion?
I move that we approve 64-218 separation standards for high traffic uses as written.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed. Okay. So carries 5-1 with no changes.
Well, CVS, I guess you'll have to give that out.
Next item is update by staff regarding ongoing projects. One of the items we have is discussion and review of purpose for code enforcement matrix.
Now, this is brought back based on discussion we had a couple of months ago regarding the fine matrix table that we looked at from Forsyth. We talked about putting together a letter to the judges requesting a meeting so that we can all come to agreement if they thought that this was a good idea. You all asked to put together a purpose for the code enforcement matrix, and then we could craft a letter around it. This is the purpose that came from our chair after I think it was vetted through you all by email. It was a while back, so you may not remember.
I don't
But please read
recall it
through
being vetted by email, but I do know
Well.
that the chair was going to put forward a,
Yeah, I don't remember.
Did everybody not get a copy of it?
no.
I think it was in the email, it was in the email a couple months ago. Because remember, I didn't have it, and then they said, oh, it's in the email that George sent out, but I don't think you guys have discussed it amongst yourselves, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
The item that's printed out for you is what?
Well, we can go through and discuss this, and then if somebody, I would ask if somebody would volunteer to write the letter to our judge.
Well,
That would be great.
yeah, and I'm completely okay with that, but here's my concern. This has been a pet project of George's from the beginning. And
Understood.
it's unfortunate that he's not here tonight to see it through to that
Okay.
end.
We can defer it again.
Unless somebody feels really passionate about picking it up on George's behalf,
No.
I think we're doing it a disservice by completing it without the benefit of George here.
All right.
I'm not trying to shirk any responsibility for us this evening, but I really think it would be unfair and a disservice to George if we did move it forward without him being a part of it. Damn it, we're going to get him back into this process,
go.
even if he does home cooling his heels tonight, So,
One motion.
yeah, just maybe to defer.
I have a motion to defer the ordinance violations until June 28th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then I won't be here.
Well, then we're going to have to defer again.
Right.
Yeah.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion
right.
carries. Any other topics before we move for adjournment? Need to be discussed? I have just a quick topic for conversation.
Okay.
Just, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fred and I and George have been the only ones who had the opportunity to attend the strategic plan meetings. I don't think anybody else was able to make those meetings. Just two comments. One is, it's an interesting process that's going on for those of you who haven't been able to attend. I think the city's doing the right thing by trying to move forward with a strategic plan that sort of gets to the nitty-gritty of what we're trying to be as a city and hold staff and departments accountable to measurable things that will reflect the mission and vision of the city. What we encountered, though, was, at least in the groups that I attended the one that was designed for the Planning Commission and other boards, and then I attended as an observer to the one that was intended as another stakeholder group, which was the HOA presidents or people representing the HOA. And
How was that attendance?
that was pretty slim, actually. There were 1, 2, 3, 4 people there. There was an equal number of staff members, and actually, I think they were outnumbered by staff and the consultants. But the point of my bringing this up is, number one, we're doing the right thing, but number two, the process just has a lot of opportunity. It's just missing a lot of pieces. And if we get a chance to weigh in again, I hope that you guys will consider attending, because in some cases, it's endorsing the stuff that we're doing. In other instances, I found it to be really frustrating and completely inconsistent with some of the stuff that we're doing. And it is putting a lot of weight into some stakeholder groups. Well, it's calling them stakeholder groups. I will tell you, it's a very interesting short list of individuals who, prior to this, I would tell you, have not necessarily been as engaged with the city as you might have hoped for. Now, I know that consideration was given to each and every one of those people, and they certainly bring value. But in some cases, you're going back to, you're bringing people up to speed without the benefit of all the work and effort that's been put in by so many people who have been previously more engaged. In my mind, it devalues the role that so many of those people have played and puts a very significant weight on those who have not been as engaged. So the value that you guys bring is a big one to those meetings. And if we get a chance, will we have another chance to have input further into the cycle?
Let's see, I don't think we have any more open public meetings. We will have a work session presentation to the council.
Which is participative. I mean, we as a part of the audience can participate in the work session. Okay, so even that, even if it's that one, if you guys can make it on your, put it on your calendar, I encourage you to be there. Just when we're talking about the things that are, how we're going to address the development of the city, the system, the process is lacking the benefit of what you guys bring to the table.
Well, with all due respect, and I made a snide comment a couple of months ago about this, and I didn't mean any offense. I mean the fact that a strategic planning effort is going on, not being under the guise of the planning commission.
That was one of the.
I said, okay, Toro, have at it.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the odds of success? Hey, let's create a new entity, and not get bogged down with all those boring, tedious people.
Yeah, that was one of the issues that our chairman.
No offense, but I mean, once that story was told, it looked like it would be not a good use of time.
Yeah.
That's cynical. I apologize for that, but
You would have had that same feeling had you been attended.
Yeah, and it was all we could do to. I had a hard time containing myself, and I didn't in some instances as part of the meeting. I'm sure it was a topic.
What are there any examples of fundamental direction differences, or is it minor things?
Well, I don't want to turn this into a long discussion, but
too late.
Yeah, if I go back to the list of stakeholders, now, by design, the meetings that I attended did not include those stakeholders because they were part of a different group. But there's someone from the equestrian community.
Who's that?
Who is it? Jack Flowers. There's one person from the Milton Business Alliance or Business Association, which is Carrie Schwimmer. She's from the RBC Bank.
I know her.
Rita Young is from the, I don't know what you call her group, it's the Americans with Disabilities Organization, or Sensitivity to People with Disabilities. You'll have to help me with his last name. Mike McAlpin, who's a retired UPS executive, who apparently part of his career was devoted to strategic planning. Mm-hmm. Cliff Jones, principal of the high school, and then department heads, and I guess that's it. And then the consultants, the two consultants. So I don't take any exception with any one of those individuals because each of them as an individual bring value to this. But some of those people have been more engaged than others, and I don't know that is as representative of the community as I'd like to think that the process would include. Now, Planning Commission had a say, or we were invited to attend a session, as were the DRB. Mm-hmm. We were also included as a member of CPAC, And was there anybody else I'm missing that was included?
Well, all the boards and commissions that the city works with were invited to attend the same meeting. So it
yeah.
was,
And
it
it was-
included all of you, all the Historic Pres Committee, the MDAC,
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation Board as well, so.
And
one-
that night-
And one city council.
Oh, yes. and the city
And that night, from all those different groups, looking, Fred counts for 2. There was one more member of CPAC. There was one member of, 2 members, no, one member of the Historic Preservation Commission. There was
2.
2?
2.
I have.
I had
Jo-
one in my group, and you had one in your group.
Joan and who's-
Veronica Buckman.
Oh,
in
she's
my
from
group.
okay, that's right. I forgot about Veronica being a part of that. And then there were 2 or 3 people from Milton Groves Green,
1, 2.
Jack and Francia. I don't know who's
Business.
who is Sandy Shealy?
She's from the Parks and Rec Board.
Okay, Parks and Rec Board.
You had one from business.
Who was that?
From RBC Bank.
Oh
Carrie
yeah,
Schwimmer.
yeah. No, she wasn't there that night.
She was
Yes,
in
she
our,
was.
she was in our group helping.
Oh yeah, okay,
facilitate.
I do have her. I'm sorry. Amy. I didn't write down Amy's last.
Amy Peters.
Oh, that's right.
She's from
yeah.
Milton Groves Green.
You know what? Yeah, okay. So that's 3 from Milton Groves Green then. So that was it from all the boards. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 people, which if you take all those boards into consideration, if you double count Fred and myself, for example, was 2, there's theoretically 45 or 50 people that should be represented at those meetings, and there were 9. So that's pretty slim pickings from people who are have been driving the things that are important to the community. That I get it. People have conflicts, but
I would add, though, that some of those commission members and board members that didn't come to that meeting did come to some of the other stakeholder meetings. So, like at the homeowners meeting or at the, I think it was
Yeah.
the general meeting, we had several folks from the Parks Board there.
well, the
that weren't
homeowners
at our-
had 2 people, neither of whom were from homeowners associations.
Right.
And George, and then Lance Large, who he was there on behalf of his homeowners association, but he was not the homeowners association president.
Right.
So, and he
I think at
represented
the
both there.
opening meeting, there were some
There were-
Parks Board folks as well.
Okay.
And I know they showed up at another one of the meetings too, and I can't remember which one it was geared to, and I
I think there was only
apologize, there
one.
have been so many.
There only was one more, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being, if we get a chance to be included again, I just encourage you guys to attend if you can, because it's pretty powerful stuff that in some instances is on track and in some instances is pretty far off track. And Curtis, I'm sorry, I can't think of an instance at the moment there where I thought it was really off track. I don't have there was an agenda that was given to us and we were asked to contribute. Oh, I'll give you an example. No, I can't give it. I can't do it justice. There was a point that was completely inconsistent with the process that was just completed with the completion of the 2025 comprehensive plan. That made this statement that we should uphold the principles of that, and there were 2 statements down below that were completely inconsistent with that.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you have both? Who's building
I
that?
think I know which ones you're talking about. One was allow density in those areas that are not in the rural protection area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do you
Yeah,
you
well-
uphold the 2025 master plan and then
And that was rewritten here just recently by the group because we understood, okay, that looks like it's inconsistent. The intent was for it to be related to TDRs so that we would
Okay.
allow density in those receiving areas. And it was, I
Right.
think, more the way it was stated than it was really intended to be.
yeah, but
It was
unfortunately that night there was nobody to
inconsistent.
support
Sure,
that
I understand.
understanding. If it was TDRs, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Completely. But when there's nobody there to enhance the understanding of that.
Well, and in the next draft, hopefully you'll see that.
What's the end game
So-
of the whole thing? It's going to be completed by X, and what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. Well, let's formally adjourn. We can.
Well, I got to go too.
Yeah. Well, finish that thought, then we'll adjourn.
Okay. Well, it's intended to be a strategic plan overarching, so there will be organizational goals that come out of that, and specific by department. And they will include kind of the very objective, task-oriented action items that would follow on to those strategic planning goals. Now, we've done a lot of that in our comp planning, and that is reflected. Now, it doesn't include everything that we include, for instance, in our 5-year work program. It doesn't include everything that's in there, but it includes a lot of those. So
What's an example of something that would come out of the strategic planning process that we wouldn't have undertaken for some other reason?
that we wouldn't have? Well, I'm going to tell you that there isn't, but that's as much because I took a very participatory role in that
Right.
strategic plan as anybody else. And being familiar with the comp plan, those are the things that came out. So I don't know that there's anything that that's said in there that wouldn't have happened anyway, because there are, like I said, those are things that I knew that was the direction we wanted to go in, and it did fall into those primary goals. So.
Well, my experience is, and I've done, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 strategic plans for different entities, that when you attach the word strategic to it, it's the death knell for any kind of accomplishment. I don't know. More power to
One of the most consistent messages I've
But,
heard
you know.
in the meetings was that the things that were put forth as primary strategies were activities, but not
Yeah.
measurable.
Right.
There was they weren't adhering to SMART objectives, for example. There was no accountability. There was no specific timeline. There was it was just the stuff that typically goes through the SMART objective. So there was a lot of push toward making the things more, more SMART consistent.
Well,
So anyways, good sessions, but a lot of work to be done.
we should go. I mean, is that going to be announced the next time that
Well,
we
I don't know.
have,
My question was just as much as, are there going to be other points for us to weigh in? And it sounds
I
like
think the
maybe-
next one is that work session, and that's the June 13th work session.
Okay.
Robin, are you going to record that Joe left early?
I put it down on my notes.
What time did you get? Because I'm tracking this, and I know when I got here too. So can I get the minutes?
Because it'll have to make sense when you make your motion.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Again, 10:45.